We're good to go. Okay. All right. We want to go ahead and get started because we have a lot of things on the agenda tonight. So we want to welcome everyone for coming. It's great to have people here and not always just have empty chairs that we're talking to. I want to introduce the people who are here tonight. We've got Troy Slade from Planning Commission, Ethan Allen, John McKay, and we have Suze Wittenberg and Jeff Davis, and Alan McDonald should be here. So if he comes, you'll know that's who it is. My name is Jane Greiner. And to start with, we'll see, there he comes. I just had to say his name. And Alan McDonald. Yeah. Oh, well, good thing you're a fast runner. Okay, so to start the meeting, we will have an opening prayer by Suze, and then Ethan Allen will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, as we meet together this evening, we're so grateful for the fortunate circumstances that we meet in. We're very mindful of the opportunities to live in this great country, to live in this wonderfully unique community. And we are grateful for the different laws and the different procedures that are in place to help us make and navigate our civic responsibilities this evening. We are mindful, Father, of all of the heartache and the sad things that are happening around this world. We ask that an added measure of peace might be poured out and that we might be able to be very prayerful ourselves individually for those that need our prayers and our help in just the turmoil and the sadness and just the upheaval that's going on in this world. We are very grateful, Father, for the opportunities that we have here, and we pray that we tonight might have an outpouring ourselves of extra peace in our community and in our country and in our homes, that we can be going about doing good and blessing the lives of others. We are very thankful for the opportunity to meet tonight. We're thankful for everyone who's here, and we pray that we might have a feeling of goodwill and respect as we meet tonight. And we express our gratitude to our blessings, for our blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. The first portion of the meeting will be public comment. So public comment is a time when anyone can come forward and bring something before the Planning Commission or the City Council that's not on the agenda. So if anyone is here and wanted to bring up something that's not on the agenda tonight, now is the time for that.
Don't all speak at once.
So you're saying public comments can take place for petition of annexation during that period?
We will have time to speak about that annexation when it's during that time period. Yep. So this is just for not. I did want to remind the Planning Commission members that anytime we speak, we need to be very careful that our microphone is on and we're speaking right into our microphone. And then during any portion of our public hearing tonight, for those of you who speak, you have to be at the microphone at the stand to speak, and you state your name and your address before you speak. I also want to go over, well, first of all, let me just comment that the person here to do the BYU MAG study on connectivity between municipalities was very kind and offered to come back on another day when our agenda wasn't so heavy. So appreciate him doing that so we can move forward into our action items. And so before we start the public hearing, we'll have an introduction first to the item, and then we'll have the public hearing. But I want to go over a few things. If everyone, those of you who picked up an agenda for tonight, on the back of it, it just has the public meeting and public hearing etiquette. I can just go over it with everyone. Basically, your comment has to be recognized by the chairperson, which is myself, addressed through the microphone. Stand, speak slowly and clearly, and state your name and your address for the record. Please be respectful to others and refrain from disruptions during the meeting. So cheering or booing or clapping during the portion of the meeting. Refrain from conversations with others in the audience. The microphones are really sensitive, and so when there's whispered conversations in the audience, it's difficult to hear, as well as we have Marla Fox, who is recording, taking notes on the meeting, and she needs to be able to hear as well. Please keep your comments constructive, not disruptive. Avoid verbal approval, like booing or applauding, like I said. If you do bring any exhibits to give to the city, they become property of the city. Silence cell phones, beepers, pagers, if you can. Be considerate of others. We're going to limit the comments to what we'd like to do. Let me just add one more comment and I'll come back to that, is if you leave, this door has to stay open because it's a public meeting. And so if you leave and want to talk to someone, go all the way out by the front door. If you talk here in the hall, then we can't hear, but we can't close the door either. So I wanted to cover those things. The purpose, let me just make sure everyone understands, the purpose of a public hearing is for the citizens to bring information forward for the Planning Commission to consider. And it's really helpful to us. Citizens often have information or ideas that we don't know about. And so that's what we want to hear. What we don't want to have happen is use 2 hours for every person to repeat basically the same items. So we really appreciate the support and the people who've come out to show their interest in this subject. What would be ideal is if you had maybe 2 or 3 people who you felt like could really represent the majority of your points. And then if someone has something in addition to that, that wasn't covered in one of those points, then they could come forward and do that. And so we'll just kind of see how the time goes. I don't want to set the number of people hard fast to 2 or 3, but let's see how the time goes. If everyone will real respectfully remember to only come forward and speak if you have a different point that hasn't been covered yet. Okay. And so with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Austin or Jed or whoever is going to introduce this item to the Planning Commission.
All right. So what we're talking about tonight is Box Elder South annexation. The residents of Box Elder South have submitted a petition to the city. The city council discussed that at the previous city council meeting, and they decided to go ahead and move forward with the review of the annexation. So it's being sent to Planning Commission for them to review. This is really kind of the beginning of a vetting process, if you will, where the Planning Commission tries to weigh the pros and cons of a potential annexation and hear the public comment with regards to that, and then make some kind of a recommendation. This may happen in one meeting. We may need to table this if we feel like further information is needed. So by no means is it something that we may reach a decision on tonight, but up on the screen, you'll see a map of the area. So this is showing, I'll just zoom out here. So this is Alpine City. I'm sure everybody here is probably well aware of where this is located, but just for the record, and since we are broadcasting this online, we'll just go over where this is located. So this is in the northeast portion of Alpine. It's kind of encircled by Lambert Park. You can see here to the south and on the west. So it's this subdivision that's up on kind of up on the hillside there. It is a 59 lot subdivision. It was originally, so it's been developed in the county. It's in the TR5 zone within the county. As far as how that would fit into the city, that's adjacent to this CR 40,000 zone, which is basically our 1 acre zone. The total acreage of the area is 43.9 acres. The average size of the lot within the Box Elder South subdivision is 21,913 square feet. And I'm just going to kind of go through this is our staff report here, but I kind of want to get some of this stuff on the record. So our ordinance when it comes to annexations, outlines 7 criteria that we kind of have to look at. And so the first one is the city needs to determine whether or not it is in the interest of the city to annex additional land at the current time. 2, the capability of Alpine City to supply adequate municipal services to the area proposed for annexation, such as public streets, water, sewer, police, and fire protection, including what necessary improvements will be a requirement of the petitioners / owners of the property. Item 3, whether or not water rights will be required of all property annexed into Alpine City. If the property has a current water system, the city council may require dedication of that system and water rights with any necessary improvements being made to the system by the owners of the water system as a condition of annexation. 4, whether or not the proposed annexation is consistent with the city's general plan. 5, what conditions, if any, should be attached to the proposed annexation in order to provide adequate services, protect health and safety, or are necessary for proper implementation of the general plan, such as dedications for parks, trails, open space, road, and other facilities. 6, whether as a condition and a requirement of annexation, an annexation fee will be negotiated between the city and the petitioners. This fee may be a separate and distinct from, and in addition to any development impact fees assessed pursuant to the terms of the city's impact fee ordinance. The purpose of these fees shall be to reimburse the city for any extraordinary impacts on the city and infrastructure which may be created by the annexation. And finally, 7, such other information as may be required or necessary to understand and evaluate the application / petition. So that item 7, I'll just point out to the planning commission members, that means if you feel like there's something more that's needed, that kind of gives you the ability to ask for something more than what we have in the packet or what's being discussed tonight. So just a little bit kind of background or history on this area. When it was prior to development, the developer approached the city and discussed the possibility of developing in the city, annexing into the city. The city council at the time and the developer couldn't reach an agreement as far as density and the use of the land. So the developer eventually decided to develop within the county. And so when developing in the county, that obviously the county has different rules and regulations than the city. And as a result, the development is different than it would have been had it been developed in the city. Some important things to point out here. So the area is currently receives water, sewer, and garbage from the city. Also, Lone Peak Safety, so that would be the fire and police, do service that area just because they're the closest. If they were to get an emergency call, they're the closest services to that area. So they're receiving a lot of the same services that we have in the city. One service that they are not receiving is snow removal. So, funny enough, we do get complaints here at the city all the time saying, hey, why didn't you guys snow plow my road? And we have to tell them, well, that's because you're in the county. So the county does plow that area. If it were annexed into the city, that would be something that the city would take on. Let's see here. As far as the water system, water rights, so water rights have been previously received for this area. As mentioned before, they are on the city's water system. So we did receive some of those water rights. They are just on the culinary water system. So they're at an elevation that's above where we can service with our pressurized irrigation system. So they don't receive that, but that's similar to throughout the city. Anyone that's up that high on the bench isn't going to receive our PI. So let's see here. So the next question to ask, whether or not is this proposed annexation consistent with the city's general plan? So as far as lot sizes that are up there, They could have developed, if they had developed that in the city, they probably would have gotten about 28 to 30 lots in a standard subdivision, or maybe a few bit more. It just depends on the layout, the slope of those lots. It's kind of a complicated thing, but somewhere in roughly in those numbers is what you'd be looking at. Actually, yeah, I'm sorry. So that's if it was a PRD. So if it was in the 1 acre zone, you know, actually it would be that number as well. But let's see here. So a PRD, what that is a planned residential development. So it's typically what will happen is when we have developments on the mountainside, they'll develop that as a PRD, which means they can kind of cluster the homes together and dedicate some land as open space. The Box Elder subdivision does have some open space. It has a kind of a common area in the middle. And then it does have some open space that borders on the south and east side of it. That's what the reason why I point that out is if they were to try and develop that area as a PRD in the city, meaning they could get higher density instead of 1 acre lots, they could potentially get 20,000 square foot lots, which is what they have up there right now. They would have had to dedicate up to 50% open space to get the maximum density, which would have been 35 homes. So 35 homes, but they would have had to dedicate 50% open space. So that's a big difference. You know, it doesn't exactly match up with the city's general plan or view for that zoning in that area or how lots would be developed. Let's see here. Other next item here. Potential annexation fees. So the sewer and water system is already in up there, so we wouldn't be able to get any impact fees from that. Any homes that haven't been built yet, they would have to pay impact fees if that were annexed into the city. So that could be, you know, impact fees shouldn't be a major source of income for a city. They really just kind of get you back to zero. It kind of pays for the hookup fees. It pays for the, you know, the cost of having that home developed in the city. So, but that being said, there's some homes have been developed up there already. The remainder, if it were to be annexed, we could receive those impact fees. Before you, I printed off a copy for all of the planning commission members. You do have a tax rate analysis. So that's based on 2021 numbers. In our annexation policy plan, there's something that kind of analyzes all of the annexations, and it's old numbers, 2016 numbers. So I tried to get you some more up-to-date information that's specific to this area. So you can see those numbers before you. That kind of gives you an idea of potential tax benefit, or at least the tax rate, you know, if that was within the city, that's what we'd be looking at. Moving on here. So the lots that were developed there, as I mentioned earlier, minimum lot size is, the average lot size is 21,000 square feet. If it were to be done and developed in the city, they would either have to have 40,000 square foot lots, or they could do a PRD, but there would be far fewer homes up there, probably, you know, almost half as many. The lots up there also don't exactly meet the city standards as far as zoning, as far as the width of the lots. So our standard for that area would be 110 feet. And there are several lots up there that are about 100 feet. So they're a little bit narrower than if they would have been developed in the city. So that's just something to point out there. As far as the use, it's a residential neighborhood, so that is consistent with our general plan and with our zoning. The area is in the wildland urban interface. So that means it's right up on the hillsides. We've all, you know, many of you that have been here in Alpine or in the area are kind of familiar with the wildfires that we have. So it is up in that area. Potential for that risk is there. That's just one of the things of being kind of on the hillside there. A key thing to point out is when you are in the wildland urban interface, you do have to have 2 connections to the city streets. And so This item did go to the 4th District Court in 2018. They looked at it. There was a debate on, whether or not they had sufficient connections to the city. At that time, the court ruled that the emergency access road that goes through Lambert Park is a valid secondary emergency access. And so it does meet the requirements of the wildland urban interface as far as having 2 connections. One thing that we also look at is trails. So there is a potential for some trails in this area. So as I mentioned, there's open space along the south and the east side of the subdivision. That area was originally recorded and platted with a note that says public access and trail easement. So there is the ability for the public to access and have a trail easement through that area, which kind of gets you along the part of Lambert Park, but then also goes along the east end of where it meets the forest land. So that's something that could potentially, be incorporated in the trail system. I mean, we already kind of show it on our trail plans as just because it's neighboring and it's within the city, kind of surrounded by the city. That's what I have here. From a planning perspective, I know Jed has some more stuff here, and he can cover that.
Yep. Thanks. So Austin actually covered some of my stuff already, so that's great. From an engineering perspective, we obviously look at more the nitty-gritty things like the infrastructure, how it was developed and whatnot. So Austin mentioned the area is in the sensitive lands area of the city. These are areas that have the potential for rockfall, slides.
Speak a little closer to the mic. They're struggling to hear you.
Or debris flow.
Or louder.
Or both. Maybe my mic's not working. There you go.
That sounded better. Okay.
I'm sure the county vetted the area well in terms of these things. It's not, natural hazards aren't something that's specific just for Alpine city boundaries. They're something that's more of a global problem. In researching the development, I did find where they did geologic hazard studies, specifically addressing the potential debris flow events that may occur due to the fire that happened in 2012. The developer did take precautions against debris flow events. They built a large berm on the east side of the development. So if debris flows do occur, they will come hit that berm and flow southward into Lambert Park rather than damage any homes. Austin already mentioned utilities in general. Sewer and water is already being served to the area by Alpine City. Water rights have previously been given to the city for those services, so we don't need to worry about that. Pressurized irrigation will never be served to the area because the area is above the elevation at which our system can provide secondary water, which is not uncommon. We have a couple other spots like that in the city as well. Streets, as they are currently constructed, they would conform to our typical residential street. They are actually slightly bigger than our residential streets. Our residential streets have 30 feet of asphalt. Box Elder South has 34. If there's a positive or negative to be taken away from that, the positive is they have more room to park up there. The negative is it's just a little bit more to snowplow. But I do have an issue with their street names. Street names conflict with current Alpine City street names. They have an Oak Hill Drive, we have an Oak Hill Drive. They have a Prospector Way and we have a Prospect Lane. And unfortunately, both of these streets are in the approximate same east-west orientation. So there is a conflict there. So if the city chose to move forward and annex, it would be recommended we change the street names. In terms of traffic, they're already here, they're already using the streets. So there's nothing that's going to change in terms of traffic to Alpine City, whether they are annexed or not. And then the only other thing I had to talk about is particularly the open space in the center area of their development. They have a common area that is developed with grass and a little park. This would be, if the area were annexed, staff would actually recommend that area stay as private open space, not to be maintained by the city. It's not the kind of park that the city normally takes as public open space. This would be viewed more as like a private pocket park. We call pocket parks that are in small little communities where that little area is the only one that benefits from it. So we do have a couple of those around the city. There's one in Smooth Canyon. There's one up on Hillside Drive. So there are a couple of those around the city. So I believe that's all I had to add to what Austin said.
Okay. Okay, Austin, did you have anything else?
That's all I have. I'll just throw this plat up here so you can kind of have that up on the screen for the discussion.
Okay. Now, I know that someone has something to present, or is that was just for our reading? Because typically we
So,
wouldn't have,
Yeah, so
presentation.
the petitioner, I guess kind of the main person that headed up that has prepared kind of a presentation. They wanted to see, they want to give that presentation if you
okay.
allow that. So.
And what kind of time is the presentation?
How
Do you
much
know?
time do you need on that word?
All right.
Most of it's been covered. So.
Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and do that right now. If you would like to talk through that presentation quickly, and then we'll go into more public comment. So
I believe.
Austin's got it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good evening. My name is Martin Cawley. I live at 3911 West Prospector Way, and I share the desire to change the names. It is confusing. We had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
So much has already been covered, and so I'll go through these slides, some of them very fast, others I'll focus on. So the first slide, just subject property, I think we've covered that. It's interesting in terms of the 59 lots that we have. When we go back and look at the annexation policy plan that the city created in 2017, it shows, and there's a graphic coming up, it shows 59 lots and 41 acres. There's a discrepancy of 2 or 3 acres there. But you do the simple math, and it was already understood at the time of the annexation policy plan that was adopted by the city that it was less than the acre lots. In fact, in Exhibit C of that same document, it mentions that the 59 lots, and there's a parenthetical notation that says it was already approved. I'm not sure of the history of that, but if you look at Exhibit C, all that seemed to be planned for and already adopted by the city.
Okay.
So
Well, I'll go ahead and let you finish, then we'll point out a few things that
sure,
we need to correct on it.
sure. The bullet, I'm sorry, on that one. So the last bullet there, I'm sorry, go back, Austin.
On this one?
Right on that. That last bullet there, the traffic pattern, as was mentioned, there's been a lot of confusion over and conflating the issues of traffic, and especially the paving of Moyle Drive through Lambert Park. That's a separate issue. We are not here. That issue exists whether or not there's annexation or not. So, and we are not here to advocate one position or the other. I think that's something that the city will take up at a different time. In fact, the residents understand that there is a primary and a secondary access. When we bought into our homes, we were told that. So we understand that secondary access is for emergency use only. And whether or not that is taken up in the future by this body or the city council is a separate matter to us. We're agnostic to that. Go ahead, let's go forward. That's already been shown, and we can skip forward. This is taken right from the annexation policy plan, the 2017 plan. And you can see that it south of Box Elder is what we're talking about. You can see that on the map. Alpine Cove neighborhood was already annexed. We go forward. This, I threw in this just to give this commission a sense of the status as it stands right now of which lots are occupied already, have existing homes, which are under construction, and which are empty lots. So right now, and of course, this is very dynamic, but as of now, there are 27 empty lots. So about half of the subdivision has been developed. The next slide. So here, these are also taken from the annexation, city annexation policy plan. This is what I was referencing before, where it's highlighted, where it's 59 lots and the 41 acres. And by the way, the general plan, which was mentioned by Austin of November 2021, references the 2017 annexation plan. And so it's all consistent. And you can see on the right side of this slide, south of Box Elder, which is highlighted, as was mentioned, all the infrastructure exists, and it conforms to city standards, where the streets, the water, sewer, we receive our water, sewage, we're already billed through Alpine City. So, the pressurized irrigation was also mentioned. We're all metered under culinary water. Okay, the next slide, Austin. So just a few highlights from the annexation policy plan. We are along the foothills. It is in the referenced in the annexation policy plan, and the general plan is mentioned. It mentions also in that plan about islands and peninsulas. We are definitely, as shown on the map, an island. We sit right in the middle of Alpine. The only exception is to the east, which is US forest land. But we utilize, and I'll mention this later, because of our geographic location, we utilize Alpine streets, we utilize Alpine services, we use Alpine parks, but we do not contribute tax-wise in a tax base to Alpine City. So I think that's one of the benefits to Alpine City. As mentioned in the plan, all the affected entities have been covered and have been baked into that plan. And all the costs of serving the annexation policy areas have already been factored into the city's capital plan. As Austin mentioned, there's no additional services other than, that I can understand, other than snow plow serving. So I want to focus on the next slides. So the benefits. Now we focus on this only because the city council, that seemed to be their focus. What's the benefit to us? Austin already mentioned about the property tax revenue, and we would then contribute, and the residents are willing to contribute to Alpine City, because we do recognize that we do use the services and the roads and everything that goes with it. City control over the property, that is probably one of the greater benefits here, is that you have an island of Utah County sitting right in the middle of Alpine City, and half of it has been developed. So you would think that the Alpine City would want to take control over this area and have a say in the interest of that area to make sure that they do conform with Alpine City. In fact, we know of one structure that was built under Utah County standards that never would have been allowed by Alpine City. So we have the opportunity now, since only half has been developed, to make sure that it does conform to Alpine City standards. That's mitigated to a great degree because we do have an HOA in place. In fact, I sit on the board. We are the sponsors of the petition, and the HOA is very active in making sure that we try to stay within the Alpine City standards going forward. And I should also mention that the developer, we know there is a lot of history there with the developer, but the developer has no interest or connection with the development at all going forward. It was handed over to the residents. The next page, no incremental infrastructure costs. We mentioned that, other than the snowplow services. Everything else exists. Offset to existing Alpine City costs. Again, the roads and the other services and the parks that we utilize again, being in the middle of Alpine, would be offset. The impact was already planned, as we mentioned, in the annexation plan and the general plan of the city. The next slide, we talked about, there's no pressurized irrigation, so we're not using that water source. The park was also mentioned, and we are perfectly happy with the recommendation. If we want to keep it private, we issue an HOA fee to maintain the park. And we recognize as residents that the park is almost a de facto public park, that people come to Lambert Park and they use that common area, and we're fine with that. In fact, we're planning to build a pavilion there on our dime, not on the city's dime. And we welcome, I know the mayor asked the question about traffic, and he said, well, are you okay with people parking on the street? Yes, we are. It already happens. We already have people who come visit Alpine or Rodeo, right? They come down and they have a picnic in the park, and we're fine with that. So if you want us to maintain the park, we're perfectly happy to do that. We're already doing it. So the last slide that I have here, sense of community. This is probably one of the interesting things here. When we did the petition and we had to go out and solicit signatures for the petition, this was probably the most talked about topic that I personally had with many of the signatories. And that was when I asked why, what they see the benefit of coming into Alpine City, it was this sense of community. It wasn't so much, the property tax, that difference, as Austin has showed you, is pretty minor. It really is the responsibility that we feel to contribute to the city, since we're using city services, but also that sense of community. Our addresses are Alpine. When people ask us, where do we live? Alpine. We're in the middle of Alpine. And just that inclusiveness and that belonging. We, in our bills, in our Alpine City bills that we get for water and sewer, come the newsletter, but we recognize that we have nothing to do with the city at present. So really just that feeling of belonging. I know personally myself, I have pioneer relatives buried in Alpine City Cemetery. So many of us work in the community and have connections such as that with Alpine City. So just that belonging and sense of community is very important to the residents.
Thank you.
And that's my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to point one thing out,
Sure.
just to make sure that it's clear. One of the struggles with an annexation map is it shows potential annexations, but it does not indicate intent to annex.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure everyone knows that if a property is listed as an annexation, potential annexation property, that just means it's not part of the city. It touches and could potentially be annexed, but that does not indicate intent to annex by the city.
Correct.
I'm not saying we want to or not, but I just want to make sure
Correct.
everyone's clear that the fact that it's on the map does not mean that the city had that in their intent all along.
Yeah,
Okay.
my understanding in the plan is to analyze and assess impact
Right.
of those particular areas. And it uses the word anticipates annexation, proposed annexation, but doesn't guarantee.
Potential.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
A quick question.
Sure, sure.
I think I know the answer is probably obvious, but as residents of the county, not the city, I assume you can't vote or don't vote in city elections. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Did you also know when you bought your property and maybe some of the other homeowners that it was in the county and not the city? Was that
When we
explained to
bought?
you?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we knew it was in the county. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we had to go through county permits process.
Okay, let's go ahead and let's open the public hearing. So what I would like to do is, again, if there is someone in your group that you've kind of had as a representative, we've given a good amount of time for the benefits and for those who are in favor of the annexation to present what their interests are. If you feel like there was something that was not presented or an item that was left off of that, then we would love to hear from you. And then if anyone's opinion is not represented or has additional information, come forward. So go ahead. Okay.
Hi, my name is Sarah Blackwell. I live at 457 Eastview Drive. And I would just like to kind of connect some of the dots as Austin was talking about. First of all, is that the petition does not meet the city's requirements for annexation. The current development does not meet these requirements. As Austin had already said, there are 43 acres with 59 lots. Had this been a PRD, we know that there would have been, potential for 25 to 50% open space and about half of those lots. So according to the city's general plan and the city's ordinance, in order for it to be annexed, it has to meet those requirements, which it does not. And so I'd just like to point that out. Also, nothing legally binds us to annex this development. And if we choose to go against the master plan ordinances by annexing this development, we kind of set a precedent that I don't think is the right precedent we want to set for other developments moving forward. And also one other thing, I just maybe seek some clarification, understanding on the island. I guess the idea of that being an island, and as what I was reading on the city's documents is that if it's an island already within the city, that's different. This is an island that is not in the city, it's in the county. So I just wanted to point those.
I think that's the
Those
definition of
few
an island.
Right, but I mean, right.
It's a county
But
piece of
I,
property with
yeah,
the
so
city
the
limits.
the language then, I guess,
No,
in
that's what makes it
in
an
the
island.
city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
okay.
not completely
Anyways.
surrounded, I think is what she's
Anyways,
saying.
and unfortunately, right now, it's already been developed. It's too late to meet those requirements. So that's what
Thank you.
I'm saying. Yep.
Okay. Anyone who would like to can come up to the microphone.
My name is Bob Zerker. I live at 13356 North Grove Drive. My wife and I have lived in the Cove subdivision for about 25 years. And before, we weren't annexed into the city. And every few years, the city asked if we wanted to be annexed. The mayor, whoever wanted us to be annexed. And we didn't have sidewalks, we didn't have anything. We said, well, we're not going to be annexed if we have to build sidewalks. But, they didn't stick to that policy. When just a couple of years ago, they finally annexed us. They were begging us to be annexed, but we didn't want to because we didn't want the increased taxes. But the city wanted us to be part of the city because we were getting all the benefits. And now you have people of a subdivision begging to come to the city. And it's like you're trying to restrict them. And you'd think you'd want all that revenue that you would gain, and they would be paying for all the things that they're benefiting from now. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. We're certainly just here to listen right now. Nobody's not opposed to anything yet. We're studying. Come forward.
I'm Clay Shubin. I live at 10 South Wildflower Drive here in Alpine. I really can appreciate why folks would want to be annexed into the city, and it sounds like there's already a lot of feeling of belonging based upon the services they're receiving, the roads they're using, the parks. So I don't see a difference in being annexed or not, the use of those services and belonging. But the one thing that hasn't been covered, the young lady mentioned it just a minute ago about the precedents that we set if we annex something that's contrary to the plan that we have, opens up a substantial liability to the city, because then the developers can go do whatever they want and know that there's a precedent that it can be annexed and the annexation rules can be changed based upon this precedent if we decide to set it. And then if you want to compare this to the Cove, right? You look at the density of the Cove versus the density of this. Cove feels like Alpine, the feeling that's set forth in the plan, versus this high density. It looks like Disneyland at night with lights up, up on the side of the mountain at night, is a different feel, not, it's more of a Los Angeles feel than an Alpine feel. To me, that's not going to change, but I don't want to set a precedent that legally obligates us to have to entertain other annexations because there's additional property available that will be developed. And those developers are watching what the council does here to decide how they're going to develop those properties. And that's all I had to say tonight. But besides a question about voting. So in regards to voting, my other concern is that they become voters. And the reason why is because Moyle Road is there and there may be a general vocal acceptance right now of that being the secondary emergency. But I'm very familiar with the fact that there is a groundswell movement to continue to push for that to be paved, which would be detrimental to that park system. And the last thing I want to do is create additional voters that will vote for something like that to destroy something valuable in Alpine City.
Okay, thank you.
What was your name again?
Clay Shubin.
Shubin?
Clay
Shubin.
Shubin.
Hi, my name is Rachel Frazier. I live at 1158 Moyle Drive. South Box Elder is already absolutely part of our community. I have many friends up there. They're part of the schools. They're part of the community celebrations, Christmas parties, neighborhood parties. They're part of almost everything I can think of that they would want to be part of. They simply can't vote. We are already feeling the effects of this development. We have floodlights in Lambert Park that are blocking out the stars. I'm kind of a night walker. If you're ever out there at night, it's probably me and one of my sons. And I can't see anything. There are floodlights coming from South Box Elder that kind of stretch across the entire park and then land on the trees. And so, I mean, I'm already dealing with that. I would not want to see a road go through. And we all know, like, geographically speaking, it's an issue, whether anyone wants to bring that up or not. It's a huge issue with very strong feelings on our side and on the side of everyone I've talked to. 100% of the people that I have spoken to have said that aren't in that area have said that they are concerned about the park and love the park, and it's a priority for them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. We'll do probably a couple more people.
Ed Bush.
You have to bend over, Ed. You're
Nope,
too
just-
tall.
Yeah.
Either one works.
Ed Bush, I live at 1463 Box Elder Drive. I think there's been a lot of good points made, but just like add a couple more. I think in addition to property tax, and I'm not sure, but I don't believe the city gets any sales tax revenue from online things, which was a market increase that we
Yeah,
had in our tax base because of the pandemic. I also like to point out that as stated in our annexation policy plan, there's a Utah state law that requires the city to justify the exclusion from annexation or expansion of any urban development within 1/2 mile of the municipality's boundary. So there's legal precedent that I think the Utah state was trying to do to avoid these kind of islands. And I believe the definition of island is like some sort of other like county land, around that's surrounded by the city. On the annexation requirements, we can look at Alpine Cove does not meet our road standards, as has been pointed out, and we did annex it. In our recent court proceedings going on with another area that's out on the west side, the city has taken a stance that says because we have granted exceptions in the past does not mean or set a precedent that we should accept or we will grant exceptions in the future. So there's no precedent being set here that could be legally followed in here. I would hesitate to believe that feeling that belonging to a community and having no voting access to it or it being able to vote for in here is not truly belonging to the community. We supply all the services, so there's no impacts there versus other annexations where we've had to put pumping stations in, connect into water systems and whatever. We've already done that. And finally, I would have thought that Alpine would have learned its lesson in terms of losing control of its hillsides earlier in its history, which we did originally with this development. So now we have an opportunity to actually guide it more. As mentioned by Martin, there are accessory buildings that are built in there already that do not conform to Alpine standards. So we can sit here, look away from it, put our head in the sand, or we can proactively go in and try to control it and mold it into the community that would fit better into Alpine rather than complaining about it later.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Ed, question for you,
Sure, Alan.
my friend Ed.
Yeah.
sitting next to me
Yes.
here.
It's
So-
real strange here. to
So,
see it.
so you indicated that Alpine City lost control of the ability to coordinate the development of Box Elder South, but isn't it true that the developer took it out of Alpine's hands? Alpine City could have worked with and tried to work with the developer, which would have required a PRD.
Right.
You wanted an exception on the density, but the original developer wanted, obviously, to sell more lots at a higher density. So I guess I'm just saying, when you indicate that Alpine City lost control because somehow we didn't do something we affirmatively could have done, that's not necessarily true, is it?
Well, I mean, there's a long history of lawsuits that go on with this property, as probably many of you know, right? My reference to it is that essentially the county had zoned this property essentially in a CR 40,000 zone. And not being able to come to grips with how that was going to integrate, went back to the county, the developer went to the county and got it rezoned, right? That's kind of my reference in terms of kind of losing control of it, because as long as it's part of the county, we don't have any control over it in terms of what's being built there, how it's being built, how accessories are added onto, or even the use of the property.
Yeah,
Right.
you cannot force someone though to annex. You cannot force someone and take the property and annex. So if
Right.
someone does not agree to what the city says is in the plan for that area, we can't force them to be annexed into the city.
Right.
So the city doesn't have a whole lot of control. If
Yeah.
the person who owns the property doesn't want to be annexed,
Right.
they're not.
So in this case,
Yeah.
we do have people who want to be
Right,
annexed.
exactly.
yeah.
but
But that
Right.
comparison is not.
So let me just read you something and ask you to respond. And this is a statement of criteria within our annexation plan
Mhm.
under character of community. The city should also consider annexing lands identified in its annexation policy plan, which we've done. It's in our plan. Annexation of areas along the foothills can assist in preserving and protecting sensitive and critical lands, preserving the natural beauty of the foothills and encouraging consistent development policy along the foothills. When the annexed property is developed, it should be done in accordance with the annexation policy plan and the Alpine City General Plan. Isn't that the whole problem here? Is that typically we annex property and then it's developed? But in this situation, the cart got before the horse because the developer chose, rather than comply with Alpine City density, he went to the county, got the 20,000 density instead of the 40, sold more lots. And now the current buyers who are aware of that situation would now like to be annexed into the city. But as I see it, the big problem here is, again, the cart got put before the horse, where we now have lost the ability to basically develop that or have that property developed in accordance with the existing master plan of the city.
Right. Of course, certainly, I mean, the development is underway, right? I mean, so yes, and that. Alpine Cove was another thing where the city had considered over it because it didn't meet the road standards in that, in
Mhm.
terms of for curbing and drainage and et cetera, et cetera. And also although Alpine Cove had its own water system, it was determined, I believe, that it didn't have enough pressure for the if there was an emergency for more than like one house or two that was in here. And so Alpine had to consider putting a connection into its water system in order to get enough pressure for that, right? So there are things that happen, that are in existence when you have this kind of thing. Obviously, in the best world, you would have something that wasn't developed and you would annex and you would go through all this and seek agreement,
Yeah,
right?
we probably should move on.
Yeah,
in the
I'm
in the
just trying to
public hearing. I
address-
know, no,
okay,
I know. So
So
just-
finally, what I would kind of come to a conclusion is that to a large extent, with no pun to the water supply that we supply to them. That's kind of water under the bridge right at this point, right? We have a development that's being developed. It's not being developed to even Alpine half-acre lot codes because it's under the Utah County. We have the opportunity to take control of that and to steer how that would be in the future, right?
Thank
So-
you.
And real quickly, I appreciate
Oh,
you standing
see.
there and taking the questions,
Yeah.
just because I thought there were some important things to flesh out in this public hearing, kind of for everybody to hear. So,
Right.
Okay.
so thank you for doing
Thanks,
a good
Ed.
job.
No problems, my
Thanks, Ed.
friend
Okay.
Alan.
So if anyone else has a comment, let's do one more. And like I said, okay, we'll do another, if it's something new, Okay.
This is new because
Okay,
not very
go
many
ahead
of
and
us have
say your
spoken out
name.
against the road.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I feel like if the road goes
So
in,
can I just add a comment? This is not about the road at all. The road is a non-issue tonight. We're not discussing the road. The annexation has nothing to do with the road. As was mentioned, there has already been a judgment given to the city and to this that's the road that exists meets the secondary access. And so this has nothing to do with the road.
okay, so it's been decided that a road is going through there.
No,
No,
the road
okay.
that exists meets
Okay.
the qualifications. The road that
Okay,
exists
oh, I
as a
see that
secondary,
for
as
emergency
exists,
access.
it meets the qualifications. So this is not a discussion about the road.
Jane, can I just give
Okay.
a 30-second lawyer's clarification
Okay.
on that? So that was litigated, I think
Talking to your microphone.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'll
no,
just
I'm
find
the
out.
worst.
Sit down
That's
and
what the
listen.
city.
I know.
I'm the big culprit.
I know.
So that issue was actually litigated, I think, Austin, or was it 2017?
2017. 2018.
2018, where that issue was before the district court about whether or not Alpine was required to pave that secondary access road. And the court held that Alpine City was not required to pave that. So that issue has been settled by the court by litigation already.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Jerry Henley. I live at 687 Hampton Court. A couple questions that are a statement. First of all, we've had situations where the developers have pushed their way around and sued the city as a result. And my concern is we're seeing a little bit of this, not from, I understand the homeowners, totally understand their side of it, wanting to be part of this. But on the other side of it, this is a question to you. I understand that if it's annexed, then every home up there can be built. If not, there's not enough water at this point to be able to build the rest of the homes. Is that correct?
That's something I'll have to research. I don't have the answer to that right now.
Okay, that's what I've understood.
Thank
that
you.
They cannot build. There's just not enough water, and that was the
Okay.
problem. And so I would say that it said that Patterson's totally out of it. I'm guessing he's probably not totally out of it because he's still got lots that he's got to
Okay,
sell. So
thank you. Okay, wait. So this is what I'm saying about, we can't have any comments from,
Yeah.
so he can tell us something and then we'll research it, okay? It's okay.
but that's just a question that I have. So
Okay, thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay.
Hello, good evening. My name is Chrissy Hanna. I live at 316 South Twin River Loop. I just have been listening and learning about the process.
Mhm.
And one of the things that has been discussed, but maybe not said directly,
Mhm.
is there's a window when you annex property prior to development, where there's a lot of give and take between the city and the developer.
Mhm.
And that window has closed on this property because it's developed. And so that process, the give and take, when they negotiate whether they're gonna come into the city or not, is when we get public space and trails and all the things that have been discussed. And that's, I don't wanna get that mixed up, is the timing of this annexation is a lot different than other properties that have been annexed. And I would like, whether it's a legal precedent or a message that needs to be sent to the developers, that you play by our rules. You don't go through the back door, you don't go to the county, do whatever you want, and then come back through the back door and say, oh, now we want to be a part of your city, but we didn't want to play by your rules.
Okay.
So that's my main thing is we need to, whether it's legal or whatever it needs to be, that if you want to be a part of our city, you work with us from the beginning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was your first name?
Okay.
again?
What was that?
First name?
Chrissy Hanneman.
Christy.
Chrissy, no T.
Chrissy,
Oh, Chrissy.
no T.
Double
Sorry.
S.
Chrissy.
Lots of
Hanna.
N's.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you so much for a lot of really great information was brought forward. I think there were some really great points that are important for us to consider. So Now, what we'll do as council is discuss what questions you have, what information you think we may still need that we don't have, or if you're prepared for motions, but I think we have quite a bit of
Can I kick
information.
that off?
Yeah,
Okay.
go right
So I
ahead.
just had a
In
few
fact,
questions
to
we
make
went
sure
through.
everybody does, let's kind of go around this time, because this is a fairly major item, so go for it.
Well,
No,
you
we're
wanna
gonna start with you.
So just some questions I had, just to settle some things in my own mind.
And these are questions for,
First question for Jed.
okay,
Looking through some of the engineering, there was a September 3rd, 2013 letter about the fact that, and this is with the respect that on the flooding,
Yeah.
it's kind of an alluvial fan, floodplain, whatever. Initially, there was a 2.5 foot high berm recommended. And then there was a flow mitigation analysis done a month later. It said, no, that's not gonna do it. It's gonna have to be 5.5 feet or
Yep, they did.
something. Was
They
that
did.
done?
Yeah, they
Okay.
did come back and make it bigger.
So that was done. Okay. Quick question. There's been some talk about kind of a cost benefit analysis. I understand that currently with, again, you build homes on it, the assessed value is going to be higher, but currently the tax revenue that would accrue to the city if annexation did occur would be about 250,000. What against what costs would we
Yeah.
put that?
I was gonna ask
Are there
that same
costs that accrue
question.
to the city that are that are not paid by a homeowner? I'm ignorant as to that. So if there's a $250,000 benefit and that will increase as more homes are built, is there a cost to the city that we offset that revenue by?
That's a great question. I don't deal with the budgets. I don't know that
Yeah,
Austin does
I think
either.
that's something that
Yeah.
I wanted more information on,
Okay.
Alan, as well. I mean, obviously, the cost to plow would fall to the city. There's gonna be some other costs. Tax
Mm-hmm.
collection isn't really a way for cities to make money. It's a way for a city to operate.
To
And so,
maintain.
and to maintain things. So,
And that's why we're 30 trillion in debt, because that's.
yeah,
taxes
well,
on
Alpine
revenue
City
money.
isn't.
Okay. All right. Any way we could get an answer
Just
to
collect
that? So, I mean,
taxes and it'll put
I
you
don't
in
think the
debt.
whole analysis is just, is it a cost benefit, but financial issues are one
Yeah,
aspect of it. Anyway, we could.
So
try and
essentially you would
figure
like
that
to
out.
know, where does that 250 go?
Well, not
Not
really. I just wanna
necessarily
know
what
if
it's
there are.
offset.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
my understanding, Alan, is that it's a wash. So making an argument that, hey, the city's gonna get a bunch of money
Okay.
every year. Is.
What's
not
that
re-
understanding
is-
based on?
In talking to people here in the city,
Who?
so.
I'm
people-
not grilling. Why I'm. grilling
You are
I'm
grilling
curious.
him.
No, I'm really am.
I know
I mean, I don't know
that
what
was
they
what was
know if
explained to me
our
as
engineer
well.
and
in
our
our
I know
training.
this was
manager
brought
don't
up
know
when the cove was annexed and
Mhm.
basically what Jeff just
Yeah.
said is
Is
what.
that, it's kind of a wash.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
So
Well, the
that's-
difference
And the
is there's
previous
only
one.
9 completed homes on the 21 tax rolls. And so we're gonna,
Wait, 9?
according to the valuations that I.
No. I thought they said there was 27
Well,
lots.
well, yes,
Still not
so
done.
John is correct. So the numbers that we have are the 2021 numbers. However, in there's been a lot of development. The county numbers are usually off the assessor's
Oh,
numbers. And so
okay.
They're
in
usually a year
2022,
behind.
we're gonna get a new
All the
new
homes have
assessment.
been built since then.
Right,
But-
okay, yeah, I was
But
gonna
if the
say there's a
point
lot
is
more
that,
homes
is
built.
that the
It goes
cost of the
up.
city keep up with the revenue generated of the city, it ends up just being a wash.
But we're already providing the services. So the only thing that is being incremental is the snow removal, and that's not gonna change either. So I think it's all incremental revenue to the city.
Mhm.
Well, you're the CEO and I'm gonna defer to you.
Well, I think what we can do is.
I just don't
we
know
could-
the answer.
Yeah,
I'd love
no,
to know
I
the
think-
answer.
We
I
need
think
to
that's the answer.
request more information on that.
Okay, so then a question. So we've got certain criteria set out in our development code of 5.03, right? And you guys did a good analysis on that. You went through that. Do you know, does a petitioner have to meet all of those criteria to be considered, to be reasonably considered as an annexation candidate? Or in other words, is a failure to meet even one of the criteria grounds for denial? Is it kind of an all or nothing to have to check every box, or do we know that? Is that just a balancing thing that we go through? Or have to
We
meet
may-
all the criteria?
We may need to talk to the city attorney.
Yeah, I probably have to talk to Craig about that, our city attorney.
Well, this would have been, to be honest, this would have been a nice meeting for him to be to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've said that before.
Okay, so,
Okay.
but
so we
let's
need
make
that.
sure we have the list of the things that we do need to get done.
Okay, so then just another quick question. Besides the criteria set out in 5.03, we've also got, for lack of a better term, an annexation plan, right?
Mhm.
That we adopted on February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2017. So I'm assuming that the criteria in the annexation policy, and they're called policy statements.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that we give those just as much weight as the criteria in 5.03. Do you have an answer to that? Because they're
So-
similar, but some of them are different. For
Yeah.
example, policy statement, development in annexed areas to conform to master plan. Planning Commission review annexation, which we're doing. Annexation be considered only in areas of potential urban service, islands and peninsulas of unincorporated areas to be annexed. And there's a couple of more. So I'm assuming those are co-equal criteria to what's in 5.03. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would say, yeah.
Well, I would say it's similar to like our general plan. So our general plan carries some weight, but it doesn't carry as much weight as our ordinance.
As the
does.
ordinances, yeah.
Okay.
I
The
would
ordinance
say
is,
the ordinances
you know,
have
the
a
letter of the
little more
law.
weight to-
Yeah.
The annexation policy plan is more of a guiding document.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would, that's my
Yeah,
understanding.
and as I remember, when we did that annexation policy, there was a lot of discussion about is putting property on here, giving the message that we will be annexing that property. That was a really important point that was brought out, and we had legal in the meeting that day, because otherwise we would have to look at all of those things. How do you know if in the future you would want to annex the property? You don't know the property condition in the future. You don't know if possibly in the future it would have been developed. And we still have several properties on the annexation policy map like that. And so listing them there is, those are potential annexation, but you basically have no idea what the property will be
Yeah.
like at that point in
So-
the future.
If I may,
Mhm.
quick point on that. So we had Ed Bush, a resident that got up
Mhm.
here and he mentioned that if they're within a half a mile, they have to be included.
Mhm.
So what that means is they have to be included in the
Right.
policy plan. So it is in the policy plan, and that's
Right.
why we included it.
That's
in
why
there.
we
But it
weren't
doesn't-
going to put
Just
them.
because you're in the policy plan doesn't guarantee that you'll be
Yeah.
annexed into the city.
Yeah, we were concerned and we're saying we should leave them off because we don't want to give the message to someone that they will be annexed. And when we were told we had to put them there.
Okay, a couple other just quick things.
Okay.
So I mean, like I'm already comfortable with the answer to this, but just having this confirmed by
Mhm.
our city legal counsel, the issue, again, paving the emergency access road is always such a hot button issue. And there's a lot of public sentiment out there, texts and things raging all through the neighborhoods today that if this annexation occurred, well, then that means that's going to bootstrap. That's the camel's nose in the tent that we will then have to pave that secondary emergency access road. And I would just want to confirm with our city's council that is not the case, that as Jane said, those are two completely different or distinct issues. And even if annexation were eventually recommended and then approved by city council, that does not mean there would be a de facto inroad, so to speak, no pun intended, to pave that access road. So just making sure that we're all clear on that from our legal counsel, which I think it's fairly clear, but that would be something good. Last question, just for us as we're up here determining these issues, there's discussion of an annexation fee. Is that an item, do you know, that planning commission needs to discuss and come up with? Okay, if we were to recommend annexation, for example, are we supposed to recommend an annexation fee to the city council? Or is that something that we don't determine and it would be up to the city council?
I mean, I look at it as like the budget, so that's something that's really on the city council's level, not
Yeah,
the
that's
planning
my
commission's
understanding
level.
as well. But any of the financial decisions are with the city
Good.
council. So
That
awesome,
is all
great.
I have.
Way to go.
Good question.
I know, well researched, Suze.
I just, you know what, just that whole.
Speak into your
Oh, yeah,
microphone.
partly turned it before, It's kind of like you pick up one and.
Is it
stick
turned
you-
on?
You gotta pick up the other.
I know.
That's how this feels. I don't want to get this wrong because it's just, I can't see the benefit to the city.
Okay.
And I
So you're
really
still
like the points-
curious.
I kind of go along that same line about, do we set that precedent?
Okay.
Because we've seen aggressive developers and, you just don't get what you want with the city, so you go to the county. Not like that.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think we maybe should table it. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely some things we still have to do. And this isn't like, we have to have this done by a certain date. We're holding a developer up or anything like that. So I think one thing I wanted to point out is, we've heard a lot about people being worried about doing something in perpetuity while we've talked about the Lambert Park. Well, if you annex something, it's annexed in perpetuity. So we want to make sure that we do study and have all of our answers, that when you annex something in, that's a done deal. So it's perfectly fine if you're not really sure and have questions. So Jeff.
Yes, I have a bunch of stuff here, but I'll be brief.
If it hasn't been asked yet, no, I'm just, you can say what you want.
It was brought up earlier about the city and the developer were trying to come up with an agreement.
Mhm.
How close did they get?
So that's a great question. I actually think, well, neither Austin nor I were here during that time. I actually think it would be wise to give staff some time to figure out the exact history on all that
Mhm.
and come back with an answer.
And decide
for
if
you.
it's relevant too,
Mhm.
because what happened there may not be relevant to what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I think the biggest question is with that, Jeff, that if it had been in the city, we would, that's a 43 acres up there. We would have 20 acres of open space.
Yes.
And then we have 2 acres, 2.5 acres of
Yeah.
open space instead.
Yeah,
So
and
that's the biggest difference. I mean, there's nothing we can do about that now, but my question, and I know it's your turn, so I'll be quiet and then
No,
I'll tell
it's
you my
okay.
question.
yeah, I would like to know, because from my perception, I have to agree with Sarah on all the points that she made. And to me, it seemed like it was pretty far.
Mhm.
Because what ended up happening is not even close to, it's not even close to what
Mhm.
fits in our
Master plan.
our master plan and our
Mhm.
ordinances. So I'm trying to understand, maybe they were close and maybe there was just one small issue. And that helps me.
Right, that's a good point.
That helps me with my decision.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so, I think, I want it, my other commissioners to know that it doesn't even come close
Okay.
to the PRD requirements. I didn't ever think until tonight on the water issue, so I would want to get clarification. Is there enough water, since everybody that knows me knows that my passion is
Jeff, the
water?
water engineer.
I
in case you didn't
know
know, he's a water
quite a
engineer.
bit, but I've not studied this particular subdivision, so I don't know, and I would like to know, and I'm happy to,
So I can
I'm
answer
happy
that
to
one.
look at
Okay.
that.
The answer is yes.
Okay,
They're on the Alpine City water system.
okay,
They meet Alpine City standards as far as flow and storage and meeting state requirements. They actually built a new 400,000, I want to say 400. It is 400.
it's like
The other one's
500,000
250.
gallons. Yeah,
Mhm.
There's already one up there, 250,000 gallons. They built a new 400,000 gallon tank to serve for fire protection for
Okay.
that area. So the water is
A
up to-
non-issue.
yeah,
Okay.
not an issue.
okay, so
Good to know.
arguments against saying we don't have enough water is, it's probably.
It's just misinformation.
Not a good enough
Correct.
argument. Dun, dun, dun. Can you tell me what the difference, I mean, we've heard a couple of things, but outside of the size of the lots and the road / sidewalk culvert in the cove is there any other difference between annexing the Cove or annexing Lambert than that we haven't already talked about?
I think the main difference in my point of view is that you mentioned the lot size. So the Cove matches what the master plan had there. I think that's the only difference really is the lot size. And I don't know why. I must have been gone when we did the Cove because, or I just can't remember that far back. COVID brain.
Okay, and I haven't never seen a map of the trails. That's kind of not a super important thing, but it was mentioned. But I have never seen what trails were going to or proposed or are there. So I didn't know if that
I can't remember.
map
Is that-
actually.
Yeah, I can pull it. I can pull up
exists. Okay.
the trail master plan on the screen if you'd like.
Sure, let's take a look at that. I believe we have a couple of them that go off onto county property that are more like holding places, and maybe there are trails that are actually used there, but not technically part of Alpine City Trail System.
And I guess, Jane, after this trail thing, I think the only
Mhm.
thing that I really wanted to emphasize again, it's kind of been said, but I want to reemphasize that the only reason that the city has an annexation plan is because it's required by law by the state.
That's correct.
So, okay, I may want to come back, but those
Okay,
are my.
well, that's good.
There are
Okay,
trails
so
that go
here's the
through-
trail plan here.
There are trails that go across that secondary road.
Yeah.
If you middle-
So can you see where the trail map is there?
Okay,
So you come through middle and you go across there.
Okay.
As you're going to.
Yeah, speak into your mic so that people can hear what
Brilliant.
you're saying, okay?
okay,
Did that answer your question on the trails?
thanks.
Okay, all right. John?
Can you curse or bring the map down a little bit? So the upper portion of the violet line. What am I looking at? Is that Box Elder County Development, or is that?
It's a different shade of purple. It's essentially saying that's a hard surface within Alpine City.
Okay,
So the dotted.
that's the Cove
lines-
it's going through, that
Okay,
darker
okay,
purple.
okay, so we're really down here.
Yeah, the lighter shade of purple is within the county, which is shown in the Box Elder South subdivision. The dashed line is non-existent, but could be a potential future trail. And as I mentioned, that's shown on the plat as a trail easement. So the entire east side, which is this dashed line here, and then this along the south here, there's a strip of behind these lots here that's an easement, and it has a trail easement in there. So
I'm sorry. If we chose to develop those trails, we could do that with or without annexation, is that right?
No, this is proposed. In order to get those developed, currently you would have to get approval from Utah County or the HOA in this development.
It would, since it's not Alpine City property, it would have to be done in cooperation with the property
so that
owner.
we couldn't
that
build
could
a
be a
trail, but
requirement.
it does have a public access
Yeah, I was
easement.
just
So
gonna
the public
mention
does
that.
have a right to access that if you just wanted to.
In the county, it has a public access easement.
Yes.
Correct.
Recorded in the county.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other side is the Forest Service. Okay.
Those dashed lines are actually.
So, hey,
Are they there?
Are they there now? And this map is not, sometimes. it's
so
not
do you want to
always up
speak
date.
into the microphone and say what Jed said? Or what Ed said?
So we just had a comment from the audience. He was just saying that dashed line is actually now a trail.
Okay,
So
thank you.
It's not a potential trail, it is a trail.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's helpful. Thank you.
Anything else?
I do. So you said that we get hookup fees presently under the current status. Is that correct?
Yep.
So
Only on water.
and sewer.
Yes, water and sewer.
And those fees have not been assessed for lots that don't have permits. Is that correct?
So I spoke to Marla before this meeting, and so like when someone comes to build a new home, we charge an impact fee on the home, right? The cost to hook it up to the city services and all that. As far as she was aware, when I spoke to her, she said they haven't been paying that fee. So if we were to annex this, any future home would have to pay that fee, just like any home that gets developed it gets built in the city.
So we've been doing it at no charge to connect to
So
the city?
there's multiple fees in question here, though.
Yeah.
There's streets, parks,
Yeah.
storm drain.
So this
and
is all more
sewer and
information
water.
we need.
So obviously, we're not getting all of those other streets, parks, storm drain, sewer and water. I hope I didn't misspeak just barely. That may have been something taken care of in a previous lawsuit.
Okay,
We can get you more information
okay,
on
Yeah.
we
that.
definitely need
We'll
more
have to get more
information on
research
that.
on that, but
Okay,
it is my understanding that the water and the sewer were kind of already taken care of, but all
Right.
the other fees, that's what I'm referring to.
I think
Yeah.
so. We couldn't collect
get any of
impact
those
fees
other
on
fees.
those, if I remember right.
Yep.
Okay,
So what I'm hearing you say is that there will be no benefit to the city financially with or without annexation with regard to sewer and water connections.
Correct.
Yeah, that's my understanding, John.
All right. I'm trying to understand, you're saying under the summary of Utah County tax versus Alpine City tax, Utah County tax is what the county is collecting presently?
Yeah, that would be,
And,
Uh-huh.
and given this same tax base, the 249 is what we would be collecting. And so there's
correct,
a
yeah.
portion that remains with the county.
Yeah, the county would still get they get a much smaller portion if it were annexed, essentially.
All right. But that is with only 9 homes, or maybe only 8 homes on the tax rolls. And so that should balloon to,
it shows at the bottom. I think.
Yeah, so Councilman Gordon kind of looked at that. We were talking about it earlier today. He gave me a call and he did kind of some rough numbers on it. He projected like 231% increase when that's all
Do
built
you have a
out.
number? What
I
that
can't,
is?
I don't have the number
That's
right
like
with me right now.
Doing
so-
200 percentages
But
in my.
there
so
obviously, as
$600,000.
as you build more
I think
homes,
that's pretty low, actually.
you will get more tax,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know.
So it's not insignificant.
No,
And Jed, how much would snow removal for that area cost?
I have no idea. But we can find out.
Some fraction of 600,000. I
Yes.
hope. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Those are my questions. Thank you.
okay, great. Ethan?
Oh, I did have one more for Jed. The geological study indicated a fault going through the neighborhood. Does that change any of the building requirements between how the county would administrate that and how we would?
Good question. Let me get back to you on
Add
that.
that
I
on the
actually
list.
have not studied exactly what they did as far as the fault goes. I know like in Alpine City, for example, 3 falls, if we know exactly where a fault is, we have a buffer from the fault. That they have
Changes
to-
the building envelope. doesn't it?
Correct.
Mhm.
So just because a fault zone was designated in this area doesn't mean that a fault is necessarily there. They may have dug for it, and I'm assuming since there's houses everywhere there, that they didn't find one, but I can research that.
And along those lines, has anyone looked at the building envelopes on these lots to see if they would be compliant with our standards and setbacks?
I haven't.
That would be good to know too.
Well, we do know that the widths don't meet.
Yeah.
code.
Don't comply.
Well, that doesn't,
But he means the building envelope on the
Yeah,
lot.
So the building envelope
And the-
itself has several criteria.
Sure.
One of the main ones is 20% or less is what we want the building envelope to be on. We could look at that.
yeah, I think that would be.
And
that'd be
slope
helpful.
analysis.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
so in summary, my position is that we need to get answers to these questions. But to the question of whether or not we allow an annexation because it doesn't meet our zoning is kind of like cutting off your nose to spite your face. You know, this is water under the bridge. We need to decide as a planning commission and city council, what's most important for us going forward and what do we need to do to take control, what we can control.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
so John, you're not worried about setting a precedent?
I thought Ed's comment was really pertinent, that we've dealt with similar issues where we, as a city, have decided that precedent, and we're supposed to be guided by not setting
Yeah.
precedents.
We are.
I mean, that's
But
kind of the
It
one of the
kind of
guiding.
gets, yeah, it kind of gets used for and against whatever an issue comes forward. Well, we have precedent, and then somebody against it. Well, there's not precedent. So, it psychologically, precedent is always there.
Yeah.
Technically, we should not be using precedent, but we also should be, we're the guardians of the city.
Yeah.
So, okay, yeah, Ethan.
Yeah, so I think most of the things I've heard against it are mostly against the developer, right? We aren't happy with what he did, but I don't know that we can change any of that. And
Mhm.
so, to me, I think we have to look forward and say, what is going to happen in the future of this area?
Mhm.
And is it better for us as a city to have some say about what happens in this area? Or is it better for us to let the county do that?
Right. Well,
Because
and I
we
think,
can't change that there's been a development and that there's too many houses. That's done,
exactly.
right? We can't change that. We can't, nothing that we do here will change any of
No,
that. So
you
to
just-
me, the decision that we have really is, is it gonna be better in the future if it's in the city, or is it gonna be better in the future if it's in the county?
Mhm. And what's
for
the
us.
impact? What's the
Right.
impact to the city?
And,
know,
and to me, we're not getting the fees,
Mhm.
but we're doing a lot of the work.
Okay.
We're getting some of the fees,
Mhm.
but we're not getting all of them, and we might as well get all of them. I can see, to me, that's a benefit to the city, that we get all those taxes.
Okay.
Because they're in our city anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just thinking. So the cows are already out of the barn. We can't change anything. I mean, we can't change open space. I mean, nothing going forward, right? Is that correct? It is what it is. And so, yeah. So
Not unless you want to buy some of the lots and give them back to the
there you
city.
go.
Why don't you buy some
Yeah.
of 10 of the lots and give them back?
If we change, if we annex them, do we get say on the building envelope? Does the city have
It's
any
already-
change?
I don't
I
know.
would say no, it's already
It's already,
recorded.
It's already
it's already
recorded
an
and-
approved,
and done.
recorded.
We would
Yeah.
treat it like a non-conforming lot in the city.
So that argument
Yeah.
doesn't.
All that's gone to.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. When I hear that we have control of it in the future, describe to me what you envision as control of it. I'm trying to think what it is, what benefit we get for the future.
That's what I was
Well-
sitting here thinking all
Well,
the
no,
time.
I mean, I've got some ideas on that.
There's-
For
Uh-huh.
example, somebody talked about the
Like
fact that there
sheds.
are lights that are too bright, but stay
Mhm.
on too long, and they shine out into the
Mhm.
park. Well, we have city ordinances that we have light restrictions. and
Actually.
lights. We've been all through that recently, right?
Right.
So that is something that, for example, the city, when I think when Troy needs to talk a little
Mhm.
bit about
Yeah,
I mean, just when
Those
when you put
that's a good
pros and
point.
cons and you consider them all,
mhm,
you know, I think the reasons against annexation have been really well discussed and fleshed out. It's problematic because this has not gone in the sequence that it should have gone. This was
Absolutely.
pretty well articulated by one of the public comments.
mhm.
When you look at the other side of the ledger, it is the fact there's a financial reason, which is there's frankly, I mean, I've heard it said it's a wash. I'd love to actually see an economic.
Yeah, I want to
impact
see that
study,
too.
But I think there's a net financial benefit,
Mhm.
significant net financial benefit to the city, but I could be wrong, but I'd actually like to see that.
Mhm.
I think you have some general issues, just the fact that this is a nice neighborhood full of nice people. They are our neighbors. They drive in and out. They go to our, we all go to the same churches. We go to the same parks. We go to the same birthday parties. The kids all go to the same schools.
Absolutely.
And yet you have a group of people here who are impacted by what happens in the city because they live in the city, and yet they have no ability to vote and change the direction of
For sure.
city policy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there's all those issues. And I understand the contrary. It's like, hey, look, when they bought, they knew it was county and there's no guarantee of an annexation. very, very true. I mean, they're difficult issues to balance, but ultimately there is also this issue of it's not just light and other things. You know, for example, we have restrictions in city of Alpine about accessory buildings and what you can build and what you can do on that
Right.
property. The county does not. And so if we want.
So we can't enforce any of those,
or
or?
hill and control
Can't
some of
enforce any.
the future building and lights and other things that frankly, if we want to apply our ordinances, we would have to annex Box Elder South to be able to do that.
Mhm. Yep.
But I thought that so we do have control over that? Like we could say, hey,
No.
we can't build this shed.
No,
and
he's
that's-
saying unless we
I mean-
annex it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
but
mean,
if you annex
right.
it, well, then we can,
We
right?
can.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
okay.
the
can't-
building, the
Yeah,
building
you can't
envelope and
change
the way the
building
lot is
envelope,
recorded.
But if somebody
stays.
wants to build a shed or an accessory or
Yeah,
accessory
so-
garage, or let me ask one other quick
Yeah.
question. So for example, in the city of Alpine, we have I forget what it's called, but it's kind of the short-term rental VRBO.
Yeah, right.
Ordinance.
It's a short-term rental policy.
Yeah, short-term rental policy,
Mhm.
and we've also got policies about rentals for buildings that are not connected to homes,
Mhm.
right? So that's currently we have no ability to enforce those types of ordinances in Box Elder South.
Mhm.
But if annexation were to occur, they would, you know, one thing they do is submit to ordinances and laws of the city of
Mhm.
Alpine with, you know, all those things, including restrictions that Alpine
Mhm.
imposes that the county may not.
Yeah, we need to see you, if we want to, we may want to know what that is in the county. What are their ordinances along that? I have
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
have
so
any
for-
idea.
For accessory dwellings, for
Mhm.
example, is that
Mhm.
allowed in the county?
Yeah, I don't know.
Short-term
So-
rentals
I-
probably are allowed in the
I
county.
don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. And I would say for the most part, the HOAs take care of that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
They
true.
may have
So I
ordinances
don't
respect to that.
think I really think the biggest change is whether or not we care about the people being in our city.
Well, I don't think.
And then the
that's a-
cost of the value of the value of their money to
Yeah.
our city.
Yeah,
So,
well,
right?
for sure. I mean, I don't think there's a question that we don't think all the people are
just-
wonderful and we care about the people.
Yeah.
So.
I'm kind of having
Well,
a hard time seeing any
But if we do,
disadvantages.
that would be a
whatsoever.
reason to annex them.
It
If we
might.
too care about them and we
It-
want those people
Well,
to be part of our
it
city.
would be one of the reasons,
Yeah.
but it's not the only thing we have to look at.
Right.
I'm totally agreeing with all of it. I'm just like
Yeah.
with Alan, we have to balance both of those out. We have to look out for the city and the people
and the
and the
people.
benefits of the city first that are already in our city.
Right.
So, so my question was, has there been any kind of information or liability evaluation done? So one of the biggest concerns I know anytime you bring something in is that the city would then be liable for anything that happens. So say there was a flood or a fire or things like that, the city would then assume liability. Is that true? And if I would like information on that from our attorneys.
Yeah.
Because to me, I think that's the biggest risk of all of these things is what type of liability are we taking on because it was developed in a way that doesn't meet our density. And the reason why we have that density is because it's in the sensitive lands. And the reason we have the sensitive land zone is to prevent fires and floods and all of those things. And so that's my biggest concern is what kind of liability are we taking on as a city by annexing it? Since we already have all those reasons that we know, and that's why we have them. So is that something we can talk to the attorney about too? Okay, so we need a motion. I think we need to have several other items we need to move on. So I think we need a motion tonight. I mean, it sounds like there's quite a bit of information we need still. So if somebody wants to make a motion.
So I'd be happy to make a motion, but I'm not sure that off the top of my head, I can rattle off every single item of information that we've discussed.
Yeah, I don't think we need to include that in the motion.
I think Jed and I have been taking notes
Yeah.
Okay,
throughout
all
the
right.
meeting.
So I will go ahead and make a motion that we table the item for the Box Elder South subdivision annexation and revisit that as a planning commission once we have answers to some of the questions and issues that we've raised tonight.
Okay, we have a motion by Alan McDonald. Do we have a second?
I'll sing it.
Okay, we have a second by Suze. All in favor?
Are we having a discussion?
Oh, discussion? Sorry. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, Jeff, are we good? Did you want to say something? Okay, we got the discussion period done. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Hey, I just want to thank everyone. That was really helpful. A lot of really good informative information. You're welcome to stay and enjoy the rest of the meeting if you'd like to. If you decide you want to leave, just remember to go farther out by the doors to visit, okay? Really, really appreciate all of your comments and your attendance. Okay, so let's move on to item B, which is another exciting topic, pickleball courts at Creekside Park. So,
All right, I'll go ahead and introduce this item. So if you'll recall in our the
see
planning
the
commission.
problem? Ed, get out there, would you? Okay, bye. Thanks for coming, Ed. Good to see you.
See ya. Okay, so the last time the planning commission looked at this item, the discussion was, should 2 tennis courts be converted into 8 pickleball courts? And so the planning commission made the recommendation to do that. It went to city council. They discussed the item. They felt like maybe another public hearing was needed, so they held another public hearing at the following city council meeting. They put banners up on the tennis courts, and we had a response. The city council felt like, maybe we shouldn't get rid of our tennis courts. And so now they want to look at the possibility of still having more pickleball courts, but maybe in a different location in Creekside Park. And so what we have for you tonight is kind of the area that has kind of been identified that feels like it would be a good fit for that.
Okay.
We looked at a couple of different configurations. So there was a 2x2. This is kind of a 1x4. So you can see the courts kind of lined up in a parallel line. We had, the other configuration would have been 2 courts on top of 2 other courts. The reason why that one didn't make sense is because it would have taken up too much grassy area kind of to the south and to the north. We would have had to take out some trees. There's also electrical boxes that would have been affected. So the 1x4 felt like it was a better fit. This area is adjacent to the parking that's used for the splash pad, as well as the existing tennis courts. So, it'd be near parking, it's near all the other courts, and it kind of leaves that southern area unaffected for potential future use. So I know that in years past, the city council kind of left that area open for, should the city ever decide to have a community center or a rec center or what, you name it, whatever.
Alpine
it is.
days.
Yeah.
Where would we hold Alpine days without it?
It's, like, as you mentioned, it's used in Alpine days. So this is kind of what we're looking at. I know that there's some stuff here, Jeff will probably want to talk about the storm drain and stuff like that. But right now the city council is wanting to kind of move forward with this. So every time this kind of gets put off, they can only build these tennis courts or these pickleball courts when the weather's good. So if a decision doesn't get made, this gets put off until the next good weather, which could be another year, 2 years, or 3, who knows how many years down the road. So they kind of want to look at this and hopefully have this item moving forward. If we do want to do the pickleball courts. So that's what's here tonight.
Okay. And we're looking at the area. We're not looking at any financials or anything. That's the city council. So we're just looking at this park and saying, is this the right spot?
Yeah, they'll look at the financial aspect. I will tell you that this is significantly more expensive than converting tennis courts.
Yeah, but I listened to all of city council. I was on the Zoom call and joined it, but there were very valid points to keep the tennis courts. I think it's the right thing to do, so. Although I haven't played either one of those games in a long time.
Well, we better annex Box Elder South to pay for.
Get the money. All right, now let's not convolute. Okay, so is there anything else we need to know before we take a look at this?
There's some storm drain there. We can work with it.
Okay.
If you want it there.
Okay. Do you have can you zoom out and show the park as a whole?
Yeah, let me
Does it feel
just
really
switch
hot
to
in
a
here, Danielle? I'm
different
about to
image.
pass out. Not sure if it's the pressure of having people here or what. Yeah. Too old for that. Okay, if you guys are comfortable, that's good. It's probably just me. Okay. Yeah, I think that looks like a great spot for it personally. I really do like the idea of keeping the open spaces open and the things that break it up there. I don't believe this is a public hearing. No, this is just a recommendation. So
Can we ask a ballpark about the price? Or is that?
So
None of-
ballpark, so we,
Yeah.
if you'll recall, we looked at courts at Smooth Canyon. That was that a year or two ago? Anyways, the price at that point was $80,000. As you all know, we've had unprecedented inflation, we've had COVID, we've had all that different stuff. And the projected cost of those same 4 courts now would be roughly $160,000, $170,000. So it's basically doubled
yeah,
in
And
price.
what's the cost to convert a couple of tennis courts?
I
it
don't.
was about half, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe, but
Yeah.
that's a moot point as far as our discussion goes. The city council, if they have the money and decide to use it, that's their decision. The only thing that we have up for discussion tonight is this the right location for it? Although money is very interesting and it's really sad that it doubled.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that I can't see a better location in the park for it.
Yeah.
Well, we received lots of email traffic on this.
You did.
Yes, we
And,
did.
and there seemed to be a consensus that the south side would be better to preserve the grassy areas around the splash pad.
Mhm.
I kind of find myself agreeing with that.
Mhm. Yeah, there's some advantages to that. I think the grassy areas around the splash pad, don't they have picnic or don't we have pavilions and things right there next to it? And then we have grass around it. You
Yeah.
still have some grass, there's the trees there.
It does take up a significant portion, but
Yeah.
I mean, there still is some grassy area,
Mhm.
but obviously, yes, a significant portion of that would be
Yeah,
eaten up.
if you, can you scroll back out again?
Yeah,
So you think you like the idea of going to the
Yeah,
south,
yeah.
not to the west?
Yeah, south,
mhm.
and it still leaves room for future development of pickleball courts to take it right on out to the, lining it up with the tennis courts on the east.
Mhm.
And I don't think that is a big impact on that grassy area to the
Unless
south
that
of it.
grassy area where one would be to be used for
Yeah,
pool complex, a rec center, you got. a
No, that's what I'm
nice
saying.
square,
Look at-
nice
look-
large square.
You have to look at the size of
area.
these pickleball courts in relationship to the tennis courts. They're half the size.
right.
So it doesn't impinge very much.
Okay.
I know I've virtually broken a leg playing flag football on that field. It's not a good field for field sports. It's not, I don't know what the problem was when we installed it, but there are ankle breaking
Ankle breaking holes in there,
holes
huh?
all through it.
That's
So
funny.
I think it saves some liability by paving it over.
All right. Anyone else have comments as far as where you like it? Yeah. Would you like to tell us how this site was selected that you're showing to us?
so this site it's coming from the mayor. The mayor
Mm-hmm.
liked that site.
Mhm.
We showed her a bunch of different possibilities.
Okay, so you guys have looked through different
and
possibilities.
she felt like this was a good spot.
Has the least impact is what
Yeah,
she's
the
thinking.
pros and cons, she kind of weighed that and felt like,
Mhm.
this is probably the
Yeah, I can
favorite
see
spot.
the grassy area near the splash pad being nice to have. But I do
So, I mean,
hate to break up that really nice big area there.
don't we send up the stage right behind the tennis courts, Alpine Days?
Yeah, that
In the corner,
stage is kind of set up in that
southeast
southeast corner
and
area.
yeah.
Yeah, so. Okay, well, any discussion or anybody want to make a motion on it or? If you'll come up to the microphone, I'll let you ask a question. It's not a public hearing, but you could ask a question if you'd like to. Just state your name and address.
Kim Christensen, 625 East, 100 North. I live
Mhm.
adjacent. I
Mhm.
sent an email to the group
Mhm.
with the recommendation of it being south of the tennis
Mm-hmm.
courts. You mentioned to leave that space south for a potential future use.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering why we want to exchange for current use.
Mhm.
There are people, when they use the splash pad,
Mhm.
that use that area. And so I
Okay.
don't know why you'd want to exchange that for that. There's grass on the west side, but because of the bathrooms, it blocks the view for mothers or families that are
Mhm.
watching children on a splash
Mhm.
pad. And your piece of the four courts is tiny. If you take that same piece and put it kind of where I had shown
Mhm.
the further west, with the sidewalk in between basketball courts, that just doesn't really chunk up the land very much. You still have
Okay.
so much space there. So I'm
Thanks.
wondering.
Did you have
why
a question?
Why would you exchange potential future use for current
Okay.
use that's being used
Well,
right now in that
Thank
grassy
you.
area?
One of the reasons that they did Creekside Park and one of the master plan ideas behind it was to preserve large areas of space in the city before it was all developed so that, who knows what the potential future use is, but one of the purposes of that park is to preserve a couple large chunks of land. And so that's why.
I can see that.
So,
I
thank you.
think it still leaves quite a bit
Thank you.
of space. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, this is the problem with allowing the question. So I'll give you like 1 minute. State your name and your address.
I'm Chrissy Hanneman. I live
And
at
it's a different question, right?
316, yeah.
Okay.
I walk in that park all the time and I just noticed that the parking lot by the splash pad is always overburdened, but the other one is really empty. So I'm not sure why we're trying to put
Okay.
everything by one parking lot.
Thanks.
That's the
I
only
appreciate that. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add, Austin or Jed, about that question about the parking lot and whether they determined what the burden should be on the two parking lots?
I don't have any comments, no.
Okay. And was there area west of the basketball court to put the pickleball courts? Between the basketball court and the
And that path,
sidewalk path? Mhm.
I don't
The
think.
1x4 configuration wouldn't fit in
Mhm.
that spot.
2x2 probably would, wouldn't it?
2x2
Maybe protruding out a
may.
little bit.
Reroute your path.
Yep, you could redo the path. That's another idea. Can you go back to the proposed drawing? Okay.
Yeah, what if we just shifted that pickleball court south closer to the
Sidewalk.
to the sidewalk and the
Yeah.
trees?
Yeah,
To
what,
the tennis and
would we lose
more
those
green.
trees if it came closer to the tennis courts? Would we lose the trees?
If you get too close, just for constructability, you're gonna lose some
Mhm.
trees.
I
And
mean,
I don't
I
know
do
that.
think that.
But
you know,
the reason I ask is because every foot that you move it to the south, that
Benefits.
that offsets
Mhm.
the encroachment on the splash pad.
Yep,
So
I agree with that.
the one thing you'd want to look at is, I know there's some electrical boxes, right, Jed?
Yes.
So that
Can you
goes-
identify those, Jed?
Yeah, they're actually the little white dots you see just south
Oh,
of.
that's why it's there.
Yep, and you can see them on the south side of the tennis court also.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all for Alpine days.
you still could
I mean,
move those courts.
you could theoretically move that though,
Yeah.
right?
Or theoretically, you could have those boxes within
Mm.
an
Yeah.
outer border,
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
not in the playing area.
Yeah,
of
I
course,
like the idea if we do it there to move it as far south as possible.
Yeah, that's would be my.
So I do think it's
recommendation.
reasonable to have an area, the request of having visibility from the grass to the kids on the splash pad.
Sure.
That's-
So it's pretty heavily used then by, I mean, I haven't really been over there when they're using.
Oh,
the
it's
splash
very
pad.
heavily
It's
used.
Really?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
So that is kind of important. then.
Yeah. I mean, it's the main thing for little children to do
Sure,
at that
yeah.
park, and it's
The
right
moms wanna
next
see 'em
to,
and
yeah,
be
it's
right
next to
there,
the
put a
toys and
blanket
things
out.
like that. So, I don't know.
So if we did move it just west of the basketball court.
Yeah,
And we didn't do the side by side configuration, we did more like the.
2x2.
Like below,
Mhm.
could we still get 4 pickleball courts, preserve
Yeah,
the grass?
that seems like the
for
ideal
families? Could we
spot.
just- Yeah, could we just, so we just have a whole line of sport courts right along there, and could we fit, 4 courts with a different configuration just west of the basketball court?
We could propose that to the city council if you want. We could draw that option up and
Yeah.
move it on to them with
Yeah.
both options.
Yeah,
So
I'm
why
good
don't we
with
just make that-
either of those.
that.
We could just make that as a proposal. We
Yeah.
could
Yeah,
recommend it.
we
and
could
see
recommend
if
it.
it's recommended or
The
not.
only problem is we don't have the dimensions of the park to know if what we're recommending is actually possible,
Correct.
but.
It may require moving the path, but certainly we have the land there to do it.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that idea.
It's pretty tight by that little splash pad.
Yeah, it is.
for anybody
I
running
think
around.
Well,
it
people
kinda
use
destroys
it,
some of the
like
ambiance of it
you
all.
say,
Mhm.
people are using it, then
Yeah,
let them use it.
Well,
I'm not aware
It
of
is
how
quite
they
nice
are.
when you have
You don't-
chairs and
yes,
blankets.
it
yeah.
is. Yeah,
Kids can run back
Yeah,
and
I
forth.
don't.
and you can
You
see
don't-
it's
you don't?
crazy.
Yeah.
My kids are big now.
It's a nice
I
spot.
agree.
Okay, someone,
Okay.
someone make.
Somebody want to make a motion?
Motion.
I'll make a motion that we recommend positioning the pickleball courts west of the basketball courts in a 2x2 configuration.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by John McKay and a second by Alan McDonald. I have a question for the discussion part. Do we need to say the 2x2 configuration, or can we just say whatever configuration will fit? Or do we know that a 2x2 configuration will fit there?
Well, I just think we know that a 1x4 won't.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So could we modify it to say for whatever configuration would fit? I just don't want them to stop and say, well, we can't do 2x2, so therefore we can't use your motion, you
I
know?
just don't even know, like, for example, if you did a, 1x3.
Right.
along there, would that
Well,
fit?
right, or if you did 3 and you turned one the other way or
But-
something.
but-
It may cost more to build, but
I won't
So,
accept that modification.
you
Jane. Sorry.
won't?
No.
okay, fine. Okay, Henri. Okay.
Oh, ouch.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. That passes, and that's just a recommendation, just so you know. The city council has final say. And
Spend our
let's-
money.
Yes, they have the
The
purse, exactly. We just draw pictures. Okay, Montdella Townhomes. Let's see what the update is here. Item C.
Okay, all right, so the Montdella Townhomes is here on Main Street.
Thanks for coming.
These townhomes, if you'll notice, there hasn't been a lot of activity on them in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So the property's changed ownership hands
Mhm.
a few times now. And so it was recently acquired by a new owner. They're very anxious and eager to get the project up and running. However, the designs that were created, 3 or 4 years ago, they
Mhm.
feel like, it's difficult to do. So, it had a lot of precast concrete, had different things. Anyways,
Mhm.
they want to make some design changes. So any type of change, because it is in the Gateway Historic Zone, has to get a recommendation from the Planning Commission and be approved by the City Council. They're keeping a lot of this, the design elements. So the overall, where the windows are, they're primarily brick, almost all entirely brick, I should say. That remains, but it is, I would say it's, and what we have the owner here, so he can comment some more on this and go over it in more greater detail than I'm able to, but it does look kind of like it's a more modern look than what we previously had. The other one kind of looked like an old European kind of look.
Mhm.
This is a little bit more modern. You can see here, so the siding up in the top left would be kind of an alabaster. It's kind of an off-white color, primarily brick. They'd have the carriage doors. I think it's actually probably best for him to come up and just explain all the design changes that they're
right.
proposing. So
Nothing's happening with the footprint and the buildings, the number of buildings, anything. It's just
Yeah,
strictly
so-
design features on the outside.
correct, yeah. So the
Okay.
biggest thing is the footprints don't change. The trail would still be back there. They would
Okay.
still,
So this is completely Gateway Historic Committee review of the elements used in the building.
correct. Yeah,
Okay,
that's what we're
perfect.
looking at.
And
All
I
right.
suppose he can confirm, but so these these are twin homes, shared wall. And so this proposal has to kind of set out, you kind of distinguish between the two homes a little bit better. Of the two twin homes, one will be red, one will be white. Is that what we're looking at, assume?
I don't know. Go ahead
Oh, you want
and
me to
give your
answer?
name and your address, please.
Logan Hall.
That's, I know.
There we go. 1032 West Dutch Lane, Kaysville.
Okay.
And so just to give kind of a brief, we just went under contract on this about 5 weeks ago. And we put together kind of this presentation of what we want to show you and what we want to do with the project. We obviously feel like it's an eyesore for the community. And so we want to come in and get this community up and running. And the intended use of it originally was to put twin homes in there, and we're going to maintain everything as is.
Okay.
The only changes we want to make are colorizations and architectural features.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. There are some additional slides that I wanted to show because we do want to play with some of the textures in the community as well, and introduce some new materials, not just brick in there as well. So we can kind of skip through this. You know the history of the project. We just wanted to highlight some of the features in the old original.
This is the original
design. So that was the original design intended 4 years ago, and that's what was approved. And what we're trying to do, if you keep going down, so there's the original building. So it had a metal roof, it had all brick, it had some almost like a French chateau feel to it. And the windows were arched. Some of those features that we felt like they're great features and we love the product. The only thing we're trying to do is come in and create like a new mojo for the community, I guess you could say, and say out with the old, in with the new. We want to create our own stamp on the project and just kind of take away that bad stigma that's sitting there in this community with the building sitting there for, I don't know, a year now. And just come in and say, hey, we're going to come and do this thing the right way. We're going to build it good. We're going to build it efficiently, and we're going to build it in a timely manner. And that's what we can do. So, metal roofs, things like that were very costly. So if you go down to the next slide, here's what we're proposing is that we change window shapes and sizes, but not locations. So in this view right here, this is the 2-story. We have, instead of circle windows, we have square windows. We've removed some of the dentil shelves, and that's what he was referring to with the concrete. And then we just cleaned up some of the features to make it a little more, I guess you could say, current. Again, we're not trying to deter from that original look as much. We're just trying to create our own stamp and say, hey, we're coming in here, new builder, new mojo. We've got a lot of energy behind this. We're excited. We just want to change some of the architectural features to fit more of what we would want to do. We would go to an architectural shingle, which is here. It would be a black shingle, but we would add some of the metal highlights to the roof to still create that vibe that was originally intended. So this kind of gives you that idea of what the changes we're trying to make. We do like the brick. We still want to maintain the brick. In fact, the brick that we have chosen is in the same series and the same manufacturer as the original bricks that were selected. It's just a different color. So the difference is minimal from the brick that we have here and the brick that's actually on site right now currently.
To Alan's point, it looked like the picture we saw showed one side of the building brick and the other side stucco.
No, that's actually painted brick.
Oh.
So we just painted white painted brick.
Correct.
I think it's showing that.
So what we're trying to do is play with textures. So we would have brick still in there. In fact, we would have some that are all siding with no brick, or some that have an accent of wainscot, and we can kind of go through the differences.
Let's look through them.
So if we look through that, so if you go down. So here's an image of where we would do a painted brick on one, and then the other one, we do a wainscot of brick with siding material, which is a fiber cement product that is approved in the Historic Gateway district.
So the wainscot is not brick, it's a siding.
No, the wainscot is brick.
Okay, so what did you say was the siding material? I'm sorry.
The siding material
behind it.
Oh, I
Yes.
see it. Okay.
Yes. We can kind of, this allows me to do that, doesn't it? Pinpoint that.
Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I can see it now. Whoops, that went away altogether.
You know what it looks like? Our
Oh, and we're back.
our annotation device is turned off
That's
right now,
okay.
so.
All right. I follow. I was just looking at the top picture, so.
So the theme of the
Okay.
community too, to highlight this, is that we keep that brick on every chimney. We want that to be how we tie in the
Mhm.
community feel. But we don't want every unit to be the exact same.
Mhm.
And so that's why we're playing with colors and textures. So we want to introduce 3 colors into the community. We want to keep the brick. That's a feature we want to highlight.
Mhm.
We want to highlight some siding materials
Mhm.
with this dark charcoal. And we're going to go to that next. We would paint all the front doors black,
Mhm.
windows black. The current community has black windows. We still want to maintain that. And then we'd have a white painted brick or white painted siding to go along with that. And what we would do is we'd mix this throughout the community. So we have several different renderings that kind of show what that looks like. So if, Austin, you want to go to the next one. So there's the one with the wainscot and the siding.
Mhm.
So if we go to the next one, this is introducing that dark color
Mhm.
into the community. Red brick still, black windows, still the same garage doors throughout. So we introduce some siding materials and some darker colors. And then the next slide introduces a full painted brick with the red chimney. And the next one shows the 2-story with the siding material in that charcoal. So the idea is we mix this throughout the community. We make sure that it's cohesive and that it's not just looking like it's scattered throughout, but that there's a theme and some thought behind every single unit and how we do this. And in fact, we would create that plan. We have some slides showing the community finished next.
So siding material, no brick wainscoting.
There would be some with that, yes. Yes. So here's kind of an idea of what that would look like from a render perspective. Now we would introduce the darker into that as well.
All right. Let's see, so lots to take in. It's very different from what it
Yes.
originally started as.
Yes.
As I recall our discussion initially on this project, I guess there wasn't really a question of allowing residential development here.
No, it's an overlay. It's a
It's
55
an
and
overlay.
older overlay,
Is it?
senior
Oh, that's-
overlay.
okay, that's right.
It's in the
That-
commercial area and it's a senior overlay.
But I was feeling really good about it in that it really was a showcase or
Yeah.
showpiece
Mhm.
for the Gateway Historic District. I
Mhm.
think what we're looking at right now could be plopped in any residential community anywhere that doesn't have anything unique about it. I don't think it.
Yeah. I hear.
Are there certain requirements that we're obligated to fall within?
Well, it's a application of the Gateway Historic Guidelines.
Okay.
And we have a few people who are fairly new on our planning commission that aren't as familiar with those. And so basically it's to make sure that anything in that area has sort of more of a traditional look to it, or at least traditional building materials. So there was a struggle before this plan was put together. There were some buildings like, not to pick on anyone, but the State Farm building where it was just a big old square white
Yeah,
box, you know?
sure.
And so they said, okay, there's not that much space left to develop here. Let's make sure that what we do develop feels like it's cohesive with the community, either has whatever we consider historic feel to it. One of the things that we did on this, if you go back to the street view, we had them move it because it kind of had this big old flat face along the street and didn't look warm and inviting at all. And so they moved the fence back and kind of positioned it to look a little more friendly instead of just a big, backside of a barn look.
Right up against the city.
right up against the city and the street and everything like that. So I don't see that any of the elements that they're using are necessarily, they're all, it should be stone, brick, siding, metal, features like that.
So that all falls within the guidelines. what
Right,
they're
you can look at
proposing.
the coloring. And maybe we need to get some copies of that out. Well, what do you guys, what does everyone think as far as, what is it about it that is kind of feeling a little like off-putting?
Well, it is off-putting.
It is.
It is. It went down. Is what I-
They've taken out all the cost features,
Mhm.
and I understand that, but when we're talking about new construction where we have an opportunity to do something special, we ought to.
Mhm.
When we're stuck with pre-existing buildings and there's
Yeah.
not much we can do with it,
Mhm.
then it's a different situation, I think.
So what kinds of things on this, if we were to look at this, can you go back to the whole group view?
The chimney features, the concrete sills.
I think the fact before this had the really unique
Mhm.
metal roofs that really,
Yeah.
that really gave it a look.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
now
I think
those are gone and they're just
going to asphalt
shingles.
just
And
doesn't
then
do
I think a big
anything.
one for me is I could probably live with some of the varying colors, but before it was, again, very, very nice high-end roof,
Mhm.
entire brick. Again, I can understand some of the cement accent pieces
Mhm.
going, but now we've replaced.
Mhm.
Some of them didn't even have any brick wainscoting.
Did you change the
Before it was
pitch of the
solid
roof?
brick.
No, we did not. We did not change anything structurally.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's all architectural. So I will highlight that the cost of said project, I
Mhm.
believe the reason why it's shifted hands so many
Mhm.
times, we're the fifth or sixth owner,
Yeah,
is that the cost of building what's presented
right,
is almost unobtainable for this project.
right.
We did the cost analysis based on what's currently set
Mhm.
and found that there's no way this community can pencil and that
Right.
there's no builder that would come in and take this over
Yeah.
as is.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I figured.
I'd
so.
say keep that in mind as you're thinking
Yeah.
through this, that
Mhm. For
anyone
sure.
that's gonna come in here, the
Can't
metal
do this
roofs are
project.
$60,000 just for the metal roof.
Mhm.
And so when we did that, we tried to keep,
And costs might have been a little different 4 or 5 years.
it
ago
might have
than
been,
it
right?
is
So
Quite a bit
inflation's
different, I'm
kicked in.
sure. Yeah.
And so now that these features are really nice, but they're incredibly expensive. You'd have to sell these for roughly 1.7 million, and that's just
Mhm.
never gonna happen.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the two thought
Let's look at
processes
the
we have.
window. Well, yeah, 'cause I've noticed a lot of the window dressings, like if you go back to the proposal, is there anything on the windows? At all? So, that's one of the things that looks really plain to me is that all window dressings are gone, both above and below, other than a little teeny brick.
I
one at
will
the
say it's hard to
bottom.
see this, but we do have window brick sills built into it. So
Just on the bottom.
on the bottom, and we would on the top if they were encapsulated in brick fully. And then the trim around there would be trim around the siding as well.
Okay, it's just
So
hard
really
to
the
see.
two things, the cost, it's not fully cost savings either.
Mhm.
That's a big issue,
Mhm.
obviously, but the other thing was, again, just trying to put our own unique.
Sure.
Some of these
A
things
little
are
more
not
modern,
cost,
a little
some of
more
these like are not
modernized.
cost savings. We did full brick. A lot of these are still full brick.
Yeah, some of these you almost go from a fairly traditional look with the red brick to all
Right.
of a sudden almost
To
kind
the
of a
gray
mountain modern
siding.
with the gray.
Mhm.
the gray
Yeah,
siding.
it's certainly more modern.
Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
weird,
Mixing quite-
yeah, it's like one you'd almost go see up in Park City in a ski in, ski out or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then another one is a very, much more traditional look. So
Mhm.
I just wonder if
Yeah, it kind of looks like French chateau mixed with something else, like they don't go together.
yeah, I mean, I think it was, I think, again, just aesthetically, and that's sort of what we're looking
Mhm.
in the Gateway Historic District, and
Mhm.
trying to control this, at least getting something, understand the cost situation and the fact that we don't want, holes in the ground that are just dug and it's
Yeah.
not cost effective for anybody to develop it. But at the same time, I think some of the homes that the full red brick, the full white brick, then maybe some accents between the two. I think that makes a better look, a little more consistent for at least what we were.
Then the
you know,
solid
hoping
gray.
to see as you
Yeah.
come,
I
through
think that's the one
roundabout
that's
into the
weird
city.
is the is the ones that are completely siding.
Well, if we're looking at, historic, there wasn't historic White Brook,
Well,
so, I mean, I guess one of my things is like, okay, we cannot just keep kicking the can down the road.
No.
It's like, we gotta come up with a solution.
Yeah.
And if this is.
Do you have
if
other
he's the
ideas?
Six owner, it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
well, we can recognize that there's gotta be,
There's gotta be some take.
there's gotta be some kind of concession.
Yeah, for sure.
We also want to note that we want to work with the city because we
Mhm.
feel like this is an opportunity for the city as well.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful product. I don't disagree with that at all.
Mhm.
In fact, I'm saying this has opportunity within it that we can come in and make it shine, and we
Mhm.
will. We're the type of builder that will go and do that. We've done it for over 10 years. And this is not new to us to come in on a bank-owned property
Mhm.
and kind of salvage it. We've done
Mhm.
that in
That's kind of what
Huntsville.
your expertise is.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say expert, I would say we've done it,
Mhm.
and we've done it in a project much larger than this.
Mhm.
And that community is actually finishing up right
When
now.
did
And
you
it's a
came in? Was this
beautiful,
a bank-owned property?
it's a lender-owned property.
Oh.
They foreclosed on the property with the current
Mhm.
owner.
Austin, can you go back to where it shows the whole community?
Yeah,
as
that's what I was gonna
proposed? Not as it was proposed, but the new proposal. Yeah.
Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
Okay, so.
It kind of looks like barracks or something. I mean,
It's
a lot
Barracks?
of-
Really?
I don't know, or something, or, like
Barracks?
dorms or something. I mean, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
just
like-
get all the white roofs there in a row is what you're looking at.
Yeah, just, I don't know what it, just.
Well, those seem to show a lot of white with none of the, not.
Yeah, I
much
don't see any
barracks.
red in there. Is it
I
because the
mean,
red or the?
they are not
single
changing the
story?
footprint, so that should be noted. I mean,
Yeah,
But is the red,
Yeah.
is the red the single story and the white, the 2-story? Is that why we're
It's
seeing
mixed in
white
throughout.
everywhere?
That's why the render kind of shows the individual renders show
Yeah.
a
Oh,
better.
so this doesn't really show the.
It
true
doesn't really
color
show because you can't
combination.
really see the sides of it in some cases, like there may be a wainscot on some of those.
'Cause
of red
if-
brick.
If you look, go back one slide, please.
This slide?
Nope,
Yeah, the
it
way.
had a blue car in the driveway. Keep going, there, that one.
this one.
So see how that just shows the same building right next to each other. Are you saying that this rendering isn't?
No, I'd say it's a good depiction of kind of the idea, but it's not the finish. We haven't come up with the finish like what we would do. The idea was to come in here and get your
Okay.
feel of what you thought first
Okay.
before we went in and actually created like the finished.
So this is
community.
the concept, but they
It's
haven't
concept.
chosen which specific units will be which.
Correct.
type of
Okay,
material.
it's just kind of hard to see
It's
how it
hard
would
to
all
see
go
that,
together
right? We just
then.
wanted to give an idea of like our capabilities to render the entire community 3D. And we
Mhm.
actually have the ability to do a fly through the community to show
Mm-hmm.
it. We could do that if we had approved colors, materials. We could show the entire community.
Sure,
as we
and-
would do
and
it.
that's, yeah, I
But
don't
with 5
think it's
weeks,
necessary. I think we're
you know,
just trying
This is
to.
pretty good for 5 weeks, I feel like.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's not
great,
bad.
It's awesome.
I think we're just worried about the coloring. Mostly.
It just
So is
feels.
it this color? Is it this that you're saying, hey, this is kind of off base?
It's the
Okay,
white.
it's
For me,
the-
it's a lack of variety.
Yeah, it's just, all we're seeing is just this white,
We're seeing a lot of white.
solid white,
roofs.
solid, yeah, just.
Yeah, I think if we go back to some of the renders and if we were to throw that into the entire community, you'd get a better sense of the differing materials and colors that we're playing with the red brick wainscot versus the not.
I also think
Just
that there
like
needs to be
solid white.
more embellishments around the
Yeah, it
windows.
just looks really plain. But
So it's kind of hard to see on these monitors, but this one is all brick. So I mean, it would, in
Yeah, I
real
can-
life, you're gonna notice a texture.
mhm.
Yeah, it'll be.
Hmm.
It's just the location. We're not trying to be rude.
I know,
The
no.
location is-
Well, and
Open-
it's
open to
also hard
feedback.
because we
It's
switched.
just-
It's like
yeah.
not, you don't normally go from one design that we approved to now, oh,
We
you know.
do- and we do
suddenly-
Would
need
it
to
help to
keep it there in
pass
the
around like
roundabout.
the shade so they can
Yeah,
see
sure.
what that white material really
Oh,
looks like?
yes.
I mean, on the screen, it may look like a stark white,
This is the front door.
so this may be
It's not
helps.
The building.
We're not
Yeah.
putting the building. in the
Right,
front.
right.
That's just the front door.
I don't know, like, it seemed like the previous one kind of had this village feel or something, like a town or village, and I mean, I shouldn't use the word barracks, but I mean, this one like kind of feels more like just.
Yeah,
don't know,
I
like
get what you're
institutional
saying.
housing.
It's
I
more.
don't know. Maybe.
A little more European, like.
Yeah, like it had some kind of
Which I don't
fun,
know if
you know.
that was
Right, it wasn't really an
historic though.
historic district,
Yeah,
it
it
was-
was
it
like
Well,
a cottage.
look, I mean, we all know historic is
Yeah.
kind of a tough concept to pin down.
Yeah, we've had a hard time.
We've done that rodeo multiple times.
Yeah.
I guess I would just say for me,
Yeah,
the
I'm
fact
sending it
that
back to
what
you.
we approved was very, unique in its architecture with all the brick, all the
High-end.
elements, the metal roof. Now, I 100% get that
Yeah.
if this is gonna sit here and go nowhere, if it's not economically feasible, we all understand that, nobody wants that. I guess personally, I'm just feeling like if we were a little more traditional in feel, like if we were moving more towards, solid brick and or brick wainscoting, and getting a little away from just, full siding, that would be, I think it would be a little more consistent with what we had originally at least recommended the city council approve, and I think what the city council did approve. If we
This
got back
won't-
to a little more of a traditional,
Yeah, will this
Look.
go to city council?
It shouldn't. This is
That's
all
what I
Gateway
thought. This is-
Historic Committee.
Right. No, so we've made a change to the ordinance, actually. Final approval is now in the hands of the city council.
Never mind.
Right. Oh,
Strike
you
my
did?
comment
And that
from the
used to be
record.
true.
Oh, I was gonna
Yes.
say, yeah. Oh, okay. So that's good, because I would hate to, I think they're gonna have some opinions on this.
so sorry, I missed, what's our job today then? on this?
Recommend,
Or not, or deny, or recommend with.
recommend the design update.
My feeling is, Jane, whatever we recommend, the city's gonna do something else.
Now
Because,
that is a bad attitude.
Are you
Jeff.
opening to
because
seeing
that is
option
what has
B?
happened.
Yeah.
I do have an option B.
Okay,
Okay.
I was asking if you had
Yes.
another option. I would love to see a
I wanted to
second
get your
option.
feedback first. I
Okay.
kind of figured this.
Okay,
one
we're
out.
kinda like,
I'm
"Oh."
Very well prepared.
Okay,
Let's go to the next one.
option B.
This, I think, will
Well,
become.
now I
think
can't wait.
This look will be a little more homey feeling and a little more, what I would say downtown-esque.
Hmm.
So if we keep going down below questions, there's 3 slides. Right there. So in this proposal, we would take still a similar painted brick, but would introduce a natural stone into it. And the brick we would use is more of an old world brick, the
Mhm.
colorization of it. We would introduce that same stone or brick on the chimney throughout the community, and then we'd have some gray, more of a gray colorization palette mixed in with the white painted and the
Mhm.
brick. So that's kind of what, in my mind, if we're looking for something that feels a little more country and traditional, this kind of speaks to that a little more, I think.
Okay,
Do you have that brick in you have the sample?
Don't have that simple, but for the
Okay.
brick, this is a very unique brick. And so getting our hands on it was a little tricky. We don't have the loose sample we should have in the next couple weeks.
let's
It's
see
not
the
a
other
brick that I've
images.
done.
You said there's 2 more slides after
Yep.
this?
There's some renders that will highlight this a little better. So again, we're still playing with texture. We still introduce some siding, but there's still a lot of brick.
So
So
it's just the same thing, but with a lighter brick
yes,
and a lighter, instead of the black above the windows, and you're going with a gray roof,
yes.
not a black roof?
Yep.
Does option A have the boxed out windows
Mhm.
on both sides?
Yes, I did. Yeah, architecturally, it's the exact same, it's just playing with colors and textures again. So exact same footprint, exact same window packet. We're just introducing a different feel,
It's
I
just a
guess you could
different
say.
palette.
Just a
is
different
basically
palette.
is all it is.
This uses window panes versus large glass, right?
Are were the windows identical?
The windows are identical.
Yeah.
Yep, we're not changing windows.
Are
The-
you changing out the windows that are there? There are a few in place that do have the arch.
So
You're taking
our
those out?
idea, because that has sat for so long and has developed a lot of mold, is we would
Mm,
tear it down to
Pretty
foundation.
compromised.
So we would knock that down, demo it, and then start
And
from
then square
foundation.
these up.
Yes. We just don't feel like the restoration, the remediation of the mold and everything that has to happen. We've done a cost analysis. Plus, it's just, if it was me and I've been driving by that for a year and I was gonna buy that, knowing it's sat for that long, I would have a hard time with it personally. So my team didn't
Yeah.
agree with that,
Yeah,
but
I understood.
eventually I had the final say and I said, we're demoing it.
Yeah.
It does, it's not a cost, that's not a cost analysis. That's more of a feel analysis and more of a, I'm not
Yeah.
buying that personally.
Yeah, sure. That's
What-
understood.
What is the chimney cap there? Is it just deflectors or diffusers or are they?
No, we still, that French chateau originally, we kept that same feel with that cap on top. That's kind of one of the elements we
So the
wanted to,
two, okay, so those are just open stacks.
yes. And we would actually utilize this chimney. Currently, right now, they actually didn't utilize the chimney. It's a false chimney. They direct vented the fireplaces out. You can actually see the vents. That's not something we would do. We want to maintain this and keep it as a chimney and the look and not have metal boxes on the side of it, which is just an interesting way to do it. So again, here's a siding version. We do have, again, this is mixing throughout. So we do have full brick, some painted brick, some wainscot with brick, some without brick, some with siding. All of the chimneys, again, are going to match that same feel through the community with that little warmer feel.
Let's say my recommendation is you get before the city council with a more traditional, more brick
Yeah,
look, if you're gonna get through there.
yeah. Like I said,
Well,
we could make a recommendation. The city's gonna go with what they want.
Well, I mean, it's our job to get it as close to what we think it should be before it gets there.
Yeah,
So it's challenging with that.
it's challenging because
So
what we
if you were
want,
to put if you were to add a couple things to this or make a couple recommendations that you think would improve it to the point you'd feel better about it, what would they be?
Just some brick and some shutters and maybe just that.
Yeah, that's
little-
why I wondered about
just that
some of
little
the
more
shutters,
traditional
just a little
vibe.
more.
Sorry, that's just that historical thing that they want.
It does feel, it just feels very plain. Anybody else have any recommendations or suggestions or? what we should do to move forward?
so did you,
Does anyone like the,
I mean, what if it's
number
all,
one
what if it's
versus-
all red brick?
Look at that.
I would like that more.
I mean, that,
I don't know if that
That-
works for you guys.
yeah,
but
if it's all the same red brick, maybe that gives the cottage.
I like this
Feel.
lighter brick rather than the red
We get
brick.
to eat those
Red brick.
What?
That's what everybody's painting out there.
Was that Troy?
Ethan's
Can you pop
parent-
up
I
that
don't
brick
know.
with your sample?
Yep.
That's
This
like that.
is the red brick that we chose on the.
And that's different than the Mandela.
It's different, but it's in the same manufacturer, same series, just different color. In fact, if you put these two together.
Cause there is brick there on site,
There
right?
is.
Are you gonna salvage that?
I did take a picture of it.
So
'cause
you are
I-
trying to match it,
No, we're trying to, this is similar.
complement it.
Yeah, close enough.
We're gonna paint, that would be painted brick. the
Oh,
one
I
that's on
see.
site. We would use that as painted. And then use this as all the chimneys and all the wainscot and any buildings we do.
Cause maybe just bumping out with your bump outs, you could do a fun texture or color there and then you put in your brick though, so it feels like it's more.
We did look at that. The problem with the brick on those is engineering wise, it's a little tricky to put full brick on those. We'd have to cut it down and do thin brick, which is
Yeah.
doable. But
Does anybody have a preference to the first proposal versus the second? The darker brick versus the lighter brick, the dark gray versus the light gray?
Well, I don't like the light gray, but that's a personal
Do
thing.
you like the darker brick or the lighter
The
brick?
dark brick. you
That's
think
the
more
second one,
historic.
right?
I like the darker brick. I think the darker brick's
And
more
then I think the darker
historical.
Roof and the shed roof, I think that looks really good. It's just
Yeah.
so different. I think that's what's happened. It's
I know.
just so.
it's a
There we
shock.
go.
We had a
It's
big
so
night
Yeah.
too.
It's a shock.
Yeah, we're kind of.
Bit of a brain dead here.
Just-
Well, I should only speak for myself.
I'll second that for myself.
Does anyone interested in making a motion?
Yeah, we need to move it. So it'd be, personally, I think the first one looks better after looking at both of them. I would suggest that potentially something could be added to the windows or something to just add a little bit more embellishment. I think it's hard to see. Anybody want to make a motion?
Or maybe just have your designer, I don't know, kind of look at it again and if there's something they can just add. I mean, it's good looking. I mean, I think it looks great. It's just different, right? It's just kind of like, I don't know.
So then what's the motion?
I can't make a motion.
Can you bring me up
yeah,
the verbiage to make to do the motion? Oh, sorry, you have to go all the way out.
So-
Sorry about that.
So, I mean, we can make a motion with some conditions. I would, I
Right.
guess that's
So, all right,
where
I'll-
I'm
I'll
feeling
just-
that
I'll
we're
take a
at.
stab at it. We can discuss, you can modify, make a motion that we, let me see what you got here. Let's see. Yeah, I'll move to recommend that the new design be approved with the following conditions, that the builder include more brick wainscoting, and more of a traditional character that may include shutters on the windows, the metal roof and similar design elements, and that the color palette be the dark red bricks and the white painted bricks with perhaps a wainscoting element, but that the project be much more brick intensive than rather than using any siding or other alternative non-brick material.
Okay, we have a
That was-
recommendation by Alan McDonald.
Pretty impressive. I'll second that.
We have a
That was
second
good.
by Jeff Davis. Okay, discussion.
That felt pretty good.
I'm just trying to give.
Yeah, no,
It's,
Some direction,
I'm
possibly
very
Rob's
sensitive. I
rubric.
mean, we love that you come in and take over the project. We're trying to honestly trying to give you some guidance
Yeah.
that I understand, like, hey, this is what was presented to us. We assume that a builder knows business and can deliver the product with the design elements that they've asked us and told us that they would include, and that they've done their due diligence. They'll be able to bring it in and sell it and make some money. Now, clearly that hasn't happened. So we're just trying to give you a little bit of guidance with what we think is going to give you a better opportunity to do your project, which we all want, and go back with some elements that I think will give you a better opportunity to get through city council.
Move forward, so you're not going backward.
So, I am no designer, no interior decorator.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to throw some things out, but give you some ideas that come back to city council with based on this recommendation from planning commission. Just
And you may
give you a
want
little
to just
explanation on that.
chat with City Hall a little bit and maybe run it by Carla and see if they have any.
Jessica Smulin would be a good person to talk to. She
And
will,
just
she
kinda
will
get their
definitely have an
feel before
opinion.
the meeting, to see how strongly they feel about it.
All right, so did we have a
All right.
second or-
We
Yes,
had a
By
second.
Jeff Davis,
Yeah.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nay.
Okay. And we have a nay by John. All right, let's move on to the next item, which is the
Thank you.
doggy wash at Alpine Animal Hospital.
Okay, all right, so doggy wash. Let me just go ahead and pull up the rendering of what we're looking at. So
Serious, I saw this.
I hope most of you are probably familiar with where Snow Oasis used to be located, right in front of the Alpine Animal Hospital. So this would go right in that exact same spot. The application is for, there's two possible configurations. So there's a one dog, kind of one stall unit, and then there's a dual stall. And I don't know, let me see, it might be here down further.
Is this a temporary building, or is this something where somebody owns the property and is putting a permanent structure on it now?
So it would be on the animal hospital's property, so he would essentially be kind of leasing space on the property to do this.
So is the Snow Oasis on the animal hospital's property?
No.
No, it's actually down, it's actually just north of here on the corner.
It's on the corner.
No, I know, but
The
where
old-
it
the
used
old
to be-
before,
Where it
yeah.
used to be was that.
Yeah,
that animal
yes,
hospital's
and
property.
it was on the animal hospital's property, and the reason why it moved is because the vet that owned that
Yeah.
didn't want it there. There was
They were
lots of
all over the
trash and
place. Yeah.
people, and he actually lives in the basement of that building, and so, you know, they were invading his privacy among other things, and so.
But it was also kind of a tow away. It was a seasonal, temporary thing. And it was, I'm trying to remember, was it removed? Was it moved or removed in the winter?
No, they
No,
just
it's
shut it
stayed
up.
there.
It was
stayed there
shuttered
all
up,
summer
I
long?
thought, or did they haul it away every
There's
year?
another one that's movable. I know what one you're talking
Oh,
about.
is that the one
But
that's
it
north
had
there, the
its
old
own- I think
framing
so.
studio or whatever, kind of
Yeah.
across from the old church or the red brick church?
Yep.
What I'm thinking, okay.
Anyway, okay, so this is a permanent,
This would be a permanent structure.
But they're using a shipping container, looks like.
I mean,
it could be.
it's a very.
I think it is.
Looks like it.
I think it.
These units, they come, I'm assuming kind of pre-manufactured, but you have options for customization. So most notably is kind of the banner across the top. That whole border is actually kind of, that's not the actual roof. That's kind of like a facade that sticks out off the front there. And it wraps around the side. The unit is honestly primarily glass. I've seen one similar to this, and it's in Saratoga Springs, just kind of off of Redwood Road there. It's mostly glass. But that area on these images, I guess, as it's been explained to me, are not the most accurate, because that what looks kind of like a gray color in between the windows is actually more closer to a white. And it's kind of like a vinyl material. And we do have the applicants here, so he can answer better questions on this than. But so it does take that same footprint. As far as waste removal, there would be receptacles built in. So that little door on the end there, there's a little compartment, that's where the waste would be deposited into. There's a dumpster on site from the animal hospital, so, you know, large, if needed, there's adequate
So
space
there's
for.
no drainage into the sewer system?
It would be connected to the sewer system, but just
The
not
waste
for,
stuff itself.
yeah, just not for like pet waste or, you know,
Oh,
other random kind of stuff, but
I was thinking of dirty water.
dirty water is, yes, connected to the sewer.
So it's not a dog
Okay.
restroom, it's a dog wash.
It's a
Right.
dog
Yes,
shower.
Just making sure.
Dog restroom.
So.
Is there anything from a city point of view?
So
engineering, anything that you can help?
the other things I just wanted to point out, you know, we cover this on every site plan, so we looked at the setbacks. It does meet setbacks. We're not concerned about that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, height is not an issue. It's, you know, it's a small unit. And then parking, I guess, let's cover parking. So, you know, if you have one or two, if you'd have the one unit, it'd be, you know, one person washing their dog at a time. If you had the dual unit, it'd be two people washing their dogs. I mean, there could be, in theory, you could have like a line of people wanting to wash their dogs, kind of like you do at the car washes. But I think, you know, just thinking through this logically, probably the weekends would be the busiest time to probably go wash your dog.
Oh, I guess I didn't get that. This is a self-service doggy wash.
It's a
Yes,
self-service,
there's
yeah.
not a professional doggy washer
Is there
standing
someone
there.
demands it?
studs in
So
it.
yeah, so it's kind of like, you know, a good analogy is like you go to the car wash, you have the little gun and you can spray your car down yourself. This is kind of that same idea. So
Got the bathtub,
it has all the soaps, it has all the sprayers. It's all enclosed, so the waste isn't, you know, it's not dripping out into the street or on the sidewalk. It's all enclosed. But it has everything you need to clean your dog, and you don't have to have that mess at home, right? So that's the concept. And
Is it an appointment based or is it a get in line, first come, first served?
that, I don't know, the one that I saw in Saratoga Springs, and again, he can comment on this, but it was just kind of a self-service, like a car wash. You just come up, oh, it's free. I'm gonna go wash my car inside the bay and spray it down myself. So I think it's kind of the same, similar concept.
You wanna come up?
Austin is a salesperson for this.
Yeah.
Neil Smart, 456 Country Club Drive in Stansbury. I got here, I saw all these people here. I thought, man, they're excited to have a dog wash. And everybody left. And I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want to. I don't know. So,
Great idea.
yeah, so I have one in Tooele County, and it's self-serve. You come in, it's open 24 hours a day, and people just come in and use it when they want to use it. So it's not manned. On the weekends, it's cleaned usually twice a day, and on the regular days, it's cleaned once a day. But I can look on my cameras, and if looks like somebody blew their dog up in there, then I go and clean it then, so it's clean that way. So we'd have somebody here locally that would do that. And take
That
care of
doesn't
it.
happen often, does it?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how often that somebody gets a ton of hair in there. I can have 10
I
dog
see.
washes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can have 10 dog washes in a
Imagine
day, and
worse.
it's not filthy. And I can have one dog wash in a day, and it can take a bit to clean it. So
What happens to prevent the spread of disease from animal to animal?
there's a tub disinfectant that's sprayed, that's applied. That's one of the options that somebody can come in and apply before they wash their dog, after they wash their dog, and then anytime it's cleaned, that's applied. And it's applied not just to the tub that the dog stands on. It's applied to the whole, perimeter of the inside of the unit and to the handles and things like that are touched. So.
And are you in association with the animal hospital or you just approached them about?
I just
this?
approached them and asked them if they thought it'd be a good fit and if it'd work on their property, and they, felt comfortable with this being something that obviously relates to their, what they do, but liked what it was. And
And
then
do you coordinate the maintenance and the washout with them, or is that
I would,
completely separate?
I'm gonna be reaching out to some different, they're a good opportunity to work with that way, because, I could easily give them some dog washes that would help them also be excited about cleaning that a little bit more, right? If they want to be involved with that, but yeah, we could coordinate with them on that.
What about the 24-hour stay? I mean, if it's self-serve, like a gas station or something like, is that an issue with city ordinances?
Probably, well, we had gigs.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
We
what I
have
want to know.
You're asking like
What's the
hours of
precedent?
operation, or-
Yeah, that something is available.
It's in the
24 hours,
commercial
stay
zone. I
self-serve.
don't,
Lighting.
I don't know if we
you know.
have a restriction on hours. of
I don't think we
operation,
have.
but, And we have, the only, I'm thinking like, okay, we have no noise ordinance, but that really only applies to construction.
Right.
Uh,
Like have
I
a
don't think we
nuisance.
really have-
but
I don't think there's
waste homes
anything
right
that would
there.
restrict that.
Yeah.
Lighting, parking lot, parking spaces.
So,
what about
yeah.
those things?
They would be utilizing all of the existing parking. The existing parking has lighting. They'd be utilizing that. I did talk to Neil before this. He mentioned that the building itself would be illuminated for security purposes alone. So they're just utilizing what already exists. So yeah, from engineering's perspective, there's really nothing for them to add or change on the site to make it work.
Okay. It is in the Gateway Historic District.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Did you
So,
put some brick on there?
Yeah, so based on that, I just did a street view of what's surrounding that area, and there's a white vinyl fence. There's a gas station that has multiple colors on
I
it,
know,
and so,
that's the
Oh,
worst
yeah.
area.
yeah, so
The
I'd like to say
hospital
we're,
does have that blue
yeah.
color. I mean, it
Yeah.
would almost, it's little, but it might fit in.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's good that it's right there on the property.
Yeah, it
It's synergistic with the.
It is. No, I
the
think it's a great
veterinary and
vision.
animal hospital.
mhm.
and just based on what you're saying about historic, the dog wash I have in Berta, is orange and blue and white, okay? So
You've toned it
we
down
toned it
for
down
us,
for
eh?
this to try to help where we could.
No,
So-
I mean, it's as good as the snow oasis, I guess, right? It's not like it's- Okay, questions?
Is it a converted?
No, it's not. It's a manufactured dog wash from scratch. The areas that look gray that aren't windows are either powder coated aluminum and white, or It's the cord, or not two-ply plastic that is easy to wipe down and keep clean. So
Wow, it's a dog owner. That's a great idea. It's a big dog owner too, huh? I'll see you down there, Jeff.
We used to take
Cosmo down to the one that existed in Lehigh.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say you took him down to the car wash and sprayed him down. Okay, well, we're getting a little silly.
I'm in favor.
Questions, anything, concerns? Jed and Austin, do you have anything that you want to bring up that you think we need to make sure we?
Just one last thing to add. So the animal hospital does have excessive parking for the use.
That's what I was
So
thinking.
there is,
It
there
doesn't
are,
take
in
away.
theory, there are extra spots there. And then on the weekends, it's my understanding that the animal hospital is not open on the weekends.
and the dog wash is busiest after work hours and on the weekends.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well-
Do you want to make a recommendation?
I just wanna, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we accept
We recommend.
or recommend to the city council the current design and plan of the doggy wash. As it's been currently put forward to us, the planning commission.
We have a motion by Jeff Davis. Do we have a second? I can't second it. Does
Second.
anyone want to second it?
Second.
Okay, second by Alan McDonald. Okay, discussion.
So we're not gonna be concerned about
Yeah, I just,
nothing.
I kind of have a little issue that we just tore that other one down and
Yeah.
and we're approving this one. And this one's in like the prime spot as you come into town too. I mean, I don't
It's the
know.
trophy.
Okay.
It's like-
What recommendations would you make to it? Part of it, to me, that is, it's sitting by the animal hospital, the gas station. And it's a small business building sitting in the middle of businesses, not homes sitting further down, so I have less of a problem with it. It's tan, gray, white. What do you think?
I would adopt the color scheme of the vet center. It's gonna.
So it looks like it's part of the vet center?
Yeah.
I read that was bronze across there, is that right?
Yeah, and the banner and the window trim and all that, the door can all be, there's lots of options as far as color.
Is there anything you can do to it to make it
Yeah, like,
look
yeah, kind of put a
Vintage.
roof on it or something, or make it like a little schoolhouse,
Like
I
a
don't know,
dog
you know,
house.
something.
I think these are probably fairly.
Don't put
I
this
don't
much
know.
on our agenda, please.
Yeah.
We're so tired.
No.
So
That, the
the
roof line is
reason,
probably the
the
biggest
reason
problem.
that I've purchased this type of dog wash, it's from All Paws Pet Wash is the manufacturer, is the ability to keep it sanitary and it's the ability to keep it clean. And there's not really another dog wash like this on the market, and this is how they make them. So there's not really a chance for me to go in and say, hey, can you put a, you know, whatever, 12
Pitched
through.
roof is what's-
It does have a
the
pitched
flat
roof.
is what's
It does have a pitched
objectionable.
roof behind that square banner. So, but it's not hardly visible. So
What do you think about just having them adopt the colors of the animal hospital? Try to make it so it blends in with the animal hospital.
Start by the sign. Start by the animal hospital sign.
Something.
I mean, the hospital
It's the-
sign is very
It's the roof
classy.
that I don't like. the
You got
most.
stone, you got metal.
Yeah, it's just a
Um,
shed kind of thing.
Yeah, we're putting a shed.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I know that's what it is, but it feels like we're putting a shed. Welcome to Alpine, you know, and then there's like a shed. But I don't know.
Well, it sounds like that this business idea is based off of a manufacturer that makes this. So the question is there something that we can request that he does to add on to this to make it blend in a little bit better?
He said no. So
I can double check with the manufacturer and see if there's a facade of some sort that can be put on there for sure. So.
Yeah, maybe check that out or something. I mean,
That would be my
as is, I don't.
The animal hospital's brick on the bottom and then gray siding,
Blue siding.
gray
The
and then
house
blue
and
on
building
top.
is nothing special.
But we kind of want to improve
Yeah,
on
the
things
sign-
going
the
in.
sign is what's next to it. That's what you want to
Yeah.
tie into.
The sign better than the hospital.
Let's see what the
Yeah.
sign looks like.
I was gonna do a street view, but that's probably, they're usually a few years old, so I don't
Well,
know.
try it and see.
They've updated it recently, so
Oh,
they
have
don't be
they?
there.
Oh.
I mean, I'm looking, it has street view here.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it
Oh,
has.
it is
the-
up
it
pretty
has
up
the
to date,
sign.
actually.
Yeah, it
Oh,
is.
yeah, see.
And
So
so,
there's what
so
it
we
is.
can
It's
match
kind
the
of
gray
modern
and
looking.
we can match the gray and black. Yeah, it's kind of modern, like the homes that we just shot down. huh?
Yeah.
So,
You
so
don't ever
definitely,
see the
yeah.
signs.
right? But we can definitely
Yeah.
match that. That's easy, but it
Yeah.
would have that same square shape as the sign.
Yep,
That's the sign.
And it's off the road a little
That-
I mean,
bit.
really,
that
I think-
works
I
for
think
me.
You could probably make it blend in. If that's a square sign that's black and white and gray.
It's your
You probably end up with a
square,
building that's square and black and white and gray,
Mhm.
sitting on that spot.
People are gonna bring the dog
As far
to
as the
fix
color
it,
palette.
not wash it.
I would-
Can you neuter my dog?
If you could put some wainscoting around it, just a veneer, thin cut stone of some sort.
That's, what is
Anything that
that
made
on
it
the
look
sign? That's just some
like
kind
that.
of.
I don't know that
I'll
that's,
see what I can
that
do.
they have
That's not-
glass all the way down to the ground on that. If you could, can you go back to the doggy thing?
Just where they choose to put their window fans.
Yeah,
Prefabs, I
but
don't know.
yeah, that's the problem is it's
And the
something already done.
interior, yeah.
The part that you would see from the street though,
Yeah,
is,
what would you see from the street?
so would be the opposite side of this, and that's all pretty much just straight and, doesn't have all this detail. So it could be, we could have this part face the street, but normally I'd have that face the parking lot.
No,
where
I
people are
think this would
entering
be
in.
better facing. the
Yeah,
parking
and so we
lot.
can on that other side, see what kind of detail we can put on that. So,
That would be good.
That'd be really helpful.
Okay, so what's the modification to the motion?
To match the color scheme to the Alpine, what's it?
Animal Hospital.
Alpine Animal Hospital and
Sign.
add
Sign.
sign and orient the solid walls towards the street with some sort of brick, stone, veneer,
So we can't do a roof.
wainscoting or otherwise.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's the roof kind of like not doable probably, huh?
I can find out, but at this
I,
point, I
I
think that
think
banner's
if
there.
the, if the black, if it's black and silver matching the sign, I
Yeah.
think it would look cohesive.
that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, who made the motion originally?
I did.
So do you accept his modifications?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Marla, are you okay with what we just did? Do you have that all? Let us know.
Yes, I have, we're matching the color of the animal hospital, move the solid wall towards the street with some sort of design element, brick, stone, or wainscoting.
That matches, okay, that's perfect.
So
So kind of detail that matches.
We're matching the sign for the animal hospital, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the animal hospital's blue.
Right.
The sign.
Yeah, we're
And
talking
we're
about the sign,
Not the actual stuff.
which is like black and
Black and
gray.
So they want it to blend into the sign of the animal hospital, not the
It's right
animal
next to the
hospital
sign.
building. Did you get that?
It's just an old house.
No, I'm talking
Hospital.
about the sign.
Not bad,
Yeah.
but this right here.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
just gray and black.
Okay.
Marla, are you good with that?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussion? Modification.
I mean, I don't know. This guy, I guess I just feel funny about having that little business right there, Regina or Alpine. It's just a little, I don't know. But then,
So-
I don't know,
So
maybe.
what is it gonna be, a single or a double station?
Haven't decided yet on that. I'd prefer probably a double, but I don't know expense wise, we may end up doing a single unit, but I think demand easily could say that we have to do a double unit, and it could be replaced with a double unit. It would come back for approval on that.
So should we indicate what we're approving? Single or double?
Are we approving a single or a double?
You need to specify that.
Well, we don't know the dimensions. Like,
We do have the
So what-
dimensions,
What would
yeah.
a double look like compared to the single? Is it just two right next to each other?
They have one, but it's on a, can you flip the view of that so you can see it?
Yeah, how
like
big is
that?
this thing?
Oh.
Like, what is it? What by what?
Let me
are the
rotate
dimensions
this.
of
Hold on
that?
a second.
So the single unit's 8 feet by 13 feet. The double unit is, I think, 21 feet by 8 feet.
It really doesn't matter because it's the narrow side that's facing the street, right?
It could be the long, I mean, the way that, I mean,
It'll
it's
be
not
the
with that
opposite
pad's kind of on
ones.
an angle. So you would see a little bit of the narrow and a little bit of the broad or length.
It is on
length
an
of it.
angle. So you're gonna see more for a double unit. It's gonna be,
It's gonna be a lot.
it's gonna be a lot bigger.
So you may wanna just.
The dimensions are in here in the packet. If we go down further.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, how long is let's see what the dimensions of the double are.
Were these plans, are
I
these
don't-
plans just for the single unit?
Yeah.
Okay, so singles, what's getting
But I-
proposed?
Let's see.
It was like.
I swear it's listed.
13 or 8 by 21.
Oh, here it is. 8 by 21, yeah.
Yes, yeah, okay.
21 feet versus 13 feet is what your difference you're looking at in length.
Personally, I'd be okay with a single. I don't know if I'm okay with 21 feet of the,
Yeah, let's recommend approval of the single.
okay, so Marla, will you add to that motion if that's acceptable to Jeff?
That's fine.
Which it is, that we'll do a single. That
Can
we're-
you repeat what you're adding?
That the recommendation is to approve a single unit,
Single station.
single station,
Single wash station.
single wash station.
Or single bay.
Oh, isn't that what was proposed?
Well, we just want to make sure it's clear.
There were-
That's
there
what-
were-
Okay.
Okay. All right, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna say nay.
You're gonna say nay? Okay. So we got 2 nays by Alan McDonald and Troy Slade. We're a nay. Okay, next one on the item. Next item on the list is the plat amendment of Forest Creek Estate subdivision. So it's a plat amendment, so it's not matching it to an ordinance. It's if it's in the best interest of the city.
Yeah, so this is the Forest Creek subdivision. It's in the CR 40,000 zone. There's 4 lots there. Total acreage is 7.84 acres. This is an existing subdivision. It has a very messy property lines, I would say right now. There is some private open space in there. This new proposal kind of does away with, well, it'll completely do away with the private open space. So let me just pull up the plat. And yeah, so this is the plat here. As you can,
Current plat?
no, this is the proposed. Maybe it would be a good idea. Maybe I should pull up I can pull up
I thought
I'll pull
we
up the
had
existing
ordinance
so you
about
can see
multi-sided lots.
what we're looking
Yeah,
at.
we
One
did,
second.
we do.
Let's see. I'm just trying to think where,
It's right there. You're right there. Just barely north.
So there's the Fort Canyon Church
okay,
on
yeah,
the
that's
right.
right here.
And you're going up Fort Canyon.
Okay, so let's just pull up this plat. Okay, so some key things here, you'll see this has 5 lots. The proposed plat has 4 lots, so they're actually losing a lot or getting rid of a lot. That's this lot here, lot 4. It was a small lot, 18,000 square feet. Nothing was, a home was never actually built on that lot. And so that would be done away with, as well as this private open space. You see this parcel 5, parcel 3, parcel 2, and parcel 1. Those are all, it's all around the Fort Creek there. So the stream runs through there. That's the reason kind of why that open space is there, but they were able to get an extra lot. You can see that all of the other lots are, they're pretty large lots. So this one's 50,000 square feet, 37,000 on the existing plat. On the new proposed plat, they're similarly going to be large, large lots, and that open space gets absorbed into some of these lots, so making those lots bigger. So we do have some, our ordinance does have some things that what we put, for example, we put something in our ordinance that said you can't have a lot more than 5 sides. So we're trying to get rid of flag lots. And so but we do have a provision in there that you can get an exception for that. Specifically, if you're trying to correct lot lines, straighten lot lines. And so that's the process that they're proposing to go through here is they've taken this plat. They've shown us, so there's 2 versions in your packet. There's this version. You'll notice on this version, there's more frontage on the Fort Canyon Road. And if we go up to this one, it's been adjusted a little bit. And
How much frontage does lot 1 have on that?
lot 1.
Lot 1 was just fine.
Yeah, so lot 1 more than, I mean, it's quite a bit of frontage.
Okay. I can't read the numbers.
188.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Which is quite a bit. And so one thing you have to understand is the way our ordinance is written, specifically, in particular in this zone, is the more slope you have in your lot, the wider the lot has to be. And so some of these lots, depending on how much slope is in it, it could end up requiring it to be quite a bit wider. And it also, you have to increase the size of the lot for the more slope you have in the lot. So they've taken that into consideration here. That the alternative drawing that you saw with the more frontage, that shows closer to what that shows what the frontage would be, trying to comply with our ordinance. This one, they've kind of shifted a little bit. So it's still the same density. You're still the 4 lots. But this is closer to how the property would actually be used. And anyways, you can see that here. There are easements on the front of the property here. So there's a cross access and maintenance easement on the front of these 2 lots here. So this would be lot 3, specifically lot 3 and lot 4. The reason for this is there's a lot of, so these property owners kind of go back and forth in that front area. It's a shared use almost, I would, the way that.
Which pieces of property is a shared use?
So this area here is my understanding that the owner of lot 4 and lot 3, there's a lot of cross, going back and forth across here with their vehicles and stuff. And so that's the reason for the easement. And we have Ken here that can go into more detail on this. He's probably knows more than I do.
Why is lot 4 shaped like it is?
So again, if we go back to the existing plat, you can see that was lot 5. And it's just really narrow. So this box right here on the northeast is actually connected to this piece up in the front. So it has this little narrow strip here. You wouldn't be able to create this plat under our current ordinance. So they created this, I can't remember what year this was done, but
Over to the right.
we can go over to the right and find out.
There'll be a date on there somewhere.
2000. So it's we used to not have, for example, how many sides your lot can have.
Yeah.
And so we started to get really funky shaped lots because what people would do is they'd create lots to kind of cut out the slope. So you'd get these really funky, weird shaped lots that just had, some of the lots had 20 sides or more, it was getting kind of crazy. And the reason why they're doing that is just to get that slope out so they didn't have to have the larger frontage and a larger lot. So they could do smaller lot with less frontage and utilize the land. And the idea was at the same time, they were saving the hillsides because, we don't want to see the hillsides excavated into and cut and fill going on. So, the idea worked to protect the hillsides, but it created these plats that were very messy, to be honest. It's not your traditional square or rectangular shaped lot. And so this plat is trying to improve what currently exists, but at the same time, show the boundaries and create the lots in the way that they're actually being used.
So is this that you're showing us the current plat?
Yes.
This is the current plat. So yes, this is the current plat. I'm just trying to give you a reference for what it currently looks like. so that you can
So
get
if you go back to
a feel
the
for what they're changing.
proposed plat, what I'm asking about is, why do we have all this funky stuff in the center right there?
Yeah, Ken, do you want to come up and talk about that?
Ken Berg, 1018 North Deer Crest Lane. There's not many cities I get to stand up here and give my address because I am an Alpine resident. The reason why there's so much busy stuff in the front is because there's a bunch of busy stuff in the front. They share a common driveway that accesses their existing homes that crisscrosses both of those lots. If we pull up to the aerial photo, you can see the way they get to their existing homes, they have a shared common driveway. They also share a pasture that they have their horses in. They each have a barn. The two barns that you see there, one is owned by lot 3, one is owned by lot 5. So this is my first opportunity to redo a subdivision to make it better, I guess. I think this is the ugly stepchild of why you have the ordinances the way that you have them. You know, and so this was the best attempt to try to get a 20-year-old subdivision that everybody says, well, why can't we do it like they did this one? You know, to kind of bring it back closer to what the norms and standards of the city are today. I couldn't get it all back in the box, but I felt like I got it pretty close.
But how many of these lots already have existing homes on them?
4.
And
All
you're
4?
proposing 4 lots.
Yes.
So no homes will be built, you're just straightening lot lines?
Yep.
So I mean, this may be a really dumb
To
question,
what
but
end?
like 20 years later, why?
Yeah.
Because the original subdivision was a PRD with private open space. And after living that way, all 4 property owners decided, hey, we're all getting to an age. Let's separate and let's make it to where it's easier to understand
So they
what's
could sell?
hit, what's there. Now, they have no plan on selling, but they're like, this one, this is mine, this is yours. Let's call the Fort Creek the actual dividing line in between the lots. Let's just go through the effort to lose a lot. They were approved for 5. They're coming to change it to 4 to just clean it up, have it more understandable to where it's just a standard subdivision with 4 lots, 4 existing homes. That
No private open space. So basically they're taking the private open space and dividing it into the lots. Eliminating
yes,
private
but
open.
the private open space before was already divided up into the lots.
Oh.
Each lot had their own private open space. And so it was messy and confusing, and they just felt like it was worth this effort to just clean it up.
Okay, so Jed and Austin, does this in any way, shape or form improve things, meet ordinances? I'm looking at it like, I don't know.
It still
Trading one
requires,
spider for another.
it still requires a couple exceptions, but in my opinion, it is a lot cleaner.
Okay.
And those exceptions are what?
Number of sides to a lot, frontage and area, I believe. We have it listed out.
Allowing less frontage than required.
They've shown how they can meet the frontage on one, but the way they're using the property, they'd prefer to have it to where one lot has slightly less frontage. And Ken, maybe you can point those
Yeah.
out.
So I think the biggest issue is it's really lot 3, the one that's right in the center. To meet the slope and frontage requirements, it requires me to go west of Fort Creek to get the required amount of frontage. And it creates a little triangle on the other side of the creek that would be owned by lot 3 that
They can't access.
the day that you approve it, he's not going to care about, which is opposite of kind of why we're here trying
Yeah.
to assign, areas and who's in charge of what. And so in your code, it talks about you have the ability to, based on, can't remember the wording, but certain criteria, you can say, hey, we moved this because we're asking you today to move it to like the old time map makers, a physical constraint, Fort Creek. It's easy to say, I own this half, I own the east side of the river, you own the west side of the river. You're responsible for that. So that's our request.
Wait, we go back to the image of the lots. Well, I just don't, right there in the center. Yeah, that area, lot 4 has all that weird stuff down there. Is that how they're using it now?
Yes, they currently have each lot 4 has a barn, lot 3 has a barn, and they have a pavilion.
where they're-
So
Oh,
that
okay,
little
gotcha.
tail is grabbing the barn.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. What else do we need to know, Jed and Austin?
Just make sure that, so here's the model motion.
Read the model motion.
Okay, read them all.
We don't,
Those are
we
the-
don't,
those
we
are
don't
the
need to
two
have anything about
exceptions.
common driveways.
No.
Okay. Hey, do we have a motion?
Sure, I can make it. Yeah. I move to recommend the approval of the Forest Creek Estate subdivision amended with the following conditions: an exception to be granted to modify lot lines to reduce angles, corners, and odd configurations, and to allow lots with more than 5 sides.
Okay, we have a motion by Ethan Allen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by John and Kate. Discussion.
Will be way easier for them to sell it now.
Yeah, I think
Because
it's,
there's, you know, who's who,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
I don't see any
there's
negatives.
shit older.
Just making the best.
Dissolving the
20-year-old
PUD
weird
isn't
situation.
something needs to be mentioned?
No.
It doesn't need
because-
to, but
No, because it meets the current ordinances for a standard subdivision.
yeah. So they'll vacate the old plat.
If-
They're replacing it with a new plat
Yeah.
that meets the standard subdivision standards.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
all right, last one. We're so sorry you've waited this entire time. Conditional use guest house, 2600 North Mountain Springs Road.
Okay, so really quick, so all of you should remember that a few months ago, we updated our ordinance regarding guest houses to allow them to have a second access off a second right of way.
Yeah.
And so the reason for that was, the petitioner of that at the time was Scott Johnson. He's now getting closer to getting that ready to be built. He had to work out some issues. There's a stream that goes through his property. He had to work out getting a stream alteration permit, among other things. He's finally getting that stuff figured out. So he does want to do the guest house. Our ordinance does say though that it does need to be approved and needs to be recommended by the planning commission, approved by the city council. So let's just go ahead and show you here. These are some images of what the guest house will look like. It's not in the Gateway Historic Zone, so we don't have to worry about what the materials are or anything like that. But let's just zoom out here. So the map is probably a good for you to see where it's located. So this is the lot. It is 5 acres. The main residence is here in the center. This would be the primary driveway access for the main home. And then the guest house would be up here on the northeast corner of the lot, having its own driveway.
What was the second building up there?
So that's just an accessory building. That'd be like a garage or something, which you can do under our current ordinance.
I remember we talked about it, I just didn't remember.
So yeah, one is the guest house and then the other one's just like a garage. Let me just show you here with some landscaping. So it is located in the Three Falls subdivision. That's important because Three Falls does have a lot of extra requirements when compared to other subdivisions in the city. Specifically, we actually will make sure that they actually have to take it to the HOA. They have to give us a letter that they've seen these homes before we'll even approve them in DRC. So the HOA has looked at this. One of the things they wanted was them to add like some more trees and vegetation on this driveway to kind of block it from view from the street. But you can see on this plan, it shows really pretty well where the stream runs through the property. And that stream is the reason why it was difficult for him to meet our current ordinance, which says you have to be on the same driveway and all of that as the main home. And so, given his unique lot shape and circumstance, it felt like that changing the ordinance to allow for something like that made sense at the time. We approved that back a couple months ago. And so really, this is just kind of the rubber stamp. We're just approving his guest house now.
Yeah, the heavy lifting was to get your own ordinance. Now that you got your own ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, he changed the ordinance, so. Yeah.
I just want to reserve the guest house for one weekend or something.
Yeah.
Hey, there's no bribery or kickback.
Yeah.
Oh,
Planning
okay,
commission.
okay, fine.
Now, the other
Alright.
criteria was the utilities had to be hooked to the main residence.
Right.
That's a good point.
House, so
Yeah.
that did not change, and he will be doing
It was
that.
just access. The only thing
Yeah.
we changed was we allowed
Correct.
access.
And
from
this
the
is-
Second Street.
And this is like an emergency access road. It's not like it's a
Right.
main road, right? That was like a lot of our discussion.
Yeah,
last
we
time.
did,
Yeah.
but we decided that even if it was just a corner lot, that it makes sense to allow them to
Yes.
access it for both sides,
Yep.
so.
That's
Okay.
basically what we talked about. So
All right.
let's
do we
make
have
a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend a conditional use permit be granted for a guest house at 2600 North Mountain Springs Road as proposed.
I second it.
We have a motion by Alan McDonald, a second by Jeff Davis. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And now the next item we have is communication. Do we have any communication, Austin or Jed, King City, that we need to discuss?
No, I don't. Yeah,
Okay.
our agenda is, will have some ordinance stuff to look at on our next upcoming meeting. So just
Thank you for coming.
be prepared for that. And that's all I have. Yeah, so.
Okay. Approval of the minutes from March 15th.
I move that we approve the minutes from March 15th, Planning Commission.
Okay, we have a motion by John McKay.
I'll
We have
second
a
that.
Second by Ethan Allen. Any discussion or changes to the minutes from March 15th? Anyone wants to make? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Ethan Allen and a second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
I